first item is that we are here to have this meeting on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Quality First Nation. Speak up. Can I get a better mic than this one? Because I'm just about swallowing this thing.
There you go.
I'll try and speak up. We did the grand reopening of the Eaglecrest Theatre. And one of the things they taught me was to project your voice. So I'll try. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to council respecting matters contained in the proposed official community plan bylaw number 800/2018, amendment Eaglecrest bylaw number 800/08/2025, and zoning bylaw number 900/2024, amendment Eaglecrest bylaw number 900/26/2025. At this public hearing, the public will be allowed to make representations to council, and all persons present who believe that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given an opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions. Please restrict your remarks to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. Under Section 464 of the Local Government Act, the rules of this public hearing, as established by the chair, shall be read by our corporate officer, Ms. Swenson.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Under Section 4642 of the Local Government Act, the rules of this hearing, as established by the chair, are as follows. Those of you who wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaw should add your name to the speaker's registration list located at the back of the room. Speakers will be called on by the chair. If you have not yet signed up to speak, please take this opportunity to see a member of the Corporate Services staff to add your name to the speaker's list. After the chair has confirmed that it is your turn to speak, please approach the podium and commence your remarks by clearly stating your full name, your municipality or neighborhood of residence without your specific address, and identify if you are speaking on behalf of yourself or for a client or company or for a group or citizen. For example, a community association, club, or organization. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to provide their comments to council. Individuals wishing to speak a second time will be given an opportunity after everyone has had a chance to speak once. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of you following your presentation for clarification purposes. However, the main purpose of council at the public hearing is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council members at this public hearing to answer questions, state their positions, or to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Public comments submitted for consideration in writing for this hearing may be posted on the town's website in their entirety, including contact information, unless at the time of submission the author requests that the corporate officer redact specific personal information. The author's name will be redacted. Information, including submissions from the public, is available for review and comment during this hearing and has been included in the public hearing information binder on the table just inside the entrance of the auditorium. Staff will place material handed in during the hearing into that binder. When making a presentation at the podium, please direct your comments to council and face council while doing so. Please do not turn towards the auditorium. Members of the public may not address council without permission of the chair. They must maintain order and quiet and must not applaud or boo or interrupt any person addressing council. It is essential that members of the public refrain from applause and other interruptions so that every person present feels that they can make their views known to council in a safe and neutral environment. Please observe these rules, and if you have any concerns with the manner in which this hearing is conducted, please direct your comments to the chair or to corporate services staff. If this public hearing is still in progress at 6 p.m., a 1-hour recess will be called, and the public hearing will reconvene at 7 p.m. I'll turn it back over to Mayor Westbrook.
Thank you, Ms. Swenson. And so I'm asking our Director of Planning, Mr. Steels, to introduce this bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. If I could please have the lights turned down so the presentation is visible. So the purpose of today's public hearing is for council to consider comments from the public on the topic of the official community plan amendment and OCP and zoning amendment bylaws. And I'd like to walk through the bylaws in detail, and I'd also like to cover some of the questions that we've been hearing from the public with regard to these bylaws. and the answers. So, first of all, as noted, the town is considering the zoning amendment and official community plan amendment for several parcels in Eaglecrest. This is a screenshot from the media release that went out early in the year when the first concept was released. So not everything up here is being rezoned, but I will walk through the areas that are being considered for the zoning amendment one at a time. So the first parcel that's under consideration is at the corner of Country Club Drive and Eaglecrest Drive. And the zoning amendment and OCP amendment that's being considered would change the designation of this from recreation to neighborhood residential commercial, and would amend the subdivision district so that a parcel can be created of that size. The next parcel being considered is actually a portion of one parcel. It's on the west side of Country Club Drive. So if you're turning off the highway down Country Club Drive, it would be on your left-hand side when you're looking at the water. Down at the bottom of the hill, the intention here is to change the zoning to accommodate multi-residential development in that area. The same zoning would also accommodate single detached dwellings as well. So the maximum density would be for that multi-residential, but lower densities could be considered. The upper portion of that same parcel, so at the top of the hill, when you're heading down Country Club Drive on the left-hand side, that designation is proposed to go to institutional residential 1, which could accommodate multi-residential development, but could also accommodate some institutional development, such as a care facility or some sort of independent living facility. The next area of land under consideration is adjacent to Blind Bogey. So that was a portion of land on the north side of the road and also another portion on the south side. And the proposal here is to change the designation from recreation to residential to allow the creation of several detached residential lots. Or residential 1 is the zoning, so it would accommodate the same type of development as anywhere in the adjacent residential area. The next portion of land is an area that is currently town-owned. It's long and narrow and adjacent to Royal Door Knock. This land is currently zoned residential. It's zoned Rural Residential 1, and it would go to Residential 1, which is the same zoning as the surrounding residential area. The same change would be made on the parcel on the south side of Royal Door Knock, so that it would go from Rural Residential 1 to Residential 1, and the subdivision district would be changed to J to allow subdivision of these lands. The next parcel under consideration is on the Island Highway, just by the intersection of Village Way, Country Club Drive, and Highway 19A. The proposed zoning is a multi-residential zone, residential 20, which would accommodate multi-residential development. It could also accommodate single detached residential development. So a range of development densities could be considered on that site. So now I'd like to walk through the frequently asked questions that have come up in all the community meetings that we've had, and along with some of the answers that we've provided on the website. And the intention of walking through these points now is that I think probably a lot of people in the room still have these questions. So if we can answer them now, maybe your comments will change, or maybe you might not need to comment after hearing the answers to the questions. So hopefully this information is useful. So after the rezoning goes through, if it does go through, how flexible is the land use? This is a very important point. So the zoning essentially identifies maximum potential uses, including height, setbacks, and things like that. But that doesn't mean it must be built to that density. So if on this land use map you see an area designated for multifamily, that doesn't preclude a lower density option like single family. So the decision of exactly how lands get developed is going to be the subject of future public consultation. And council has committed to that subsequent round of public consultation. What consultation has occurred to date? We have had 11 smaller community group meetings and 2 open house sessions. I think many people in the room here were likely at the September session. We had over 800 responses to the online survey, and we've heard a lot of feedback emphasizing the need for a balance in housing types amenities and also the environmental benefits like the location of parkland, trails, and so on. What future consultation opportunities will be available? As I noted, Council has committed that there will be a second public engagement process on these lands considered for the zoning amendment, and that public consultation will continue after a decision is made, or regardless of which way it goes. We will be talking about housing in the future. So the only caveat there is there are those 2 residential lots that are owned by the town, and it is likely that those would be sold earlier in the process, either part of the lands or the entirety. That decision is going to be made by council in the future. What type of technical information is available, or if it's not available now, when will it be available? So traffic, environmental reports, and design studies are currently underway. So the environmental reports are still forthcoming. Council hasn't seen those, but council will see them before a decision of the purchase is made. So those will be coming soon. Design guidelines are being developed as a part of the official community plan review, and the current plan is that those will be introduced later this month. And there is also a traffic study underway that's going to be looking at the intersection of Highway 19A and Country Club Drive, but also other intersections like Yambury and Eaglecrest Drive, Chartwell, and also that section of Royal Dornoch that goes close. So why was a referendum not required? This has come up a few times, and municipalities are required to hold referendums when the municipality is going to borrow a sum of money that exceeds its threshold. Not to overcomplicate things, but when municipalities borrow lots of money, they have to go to the public for approval. So in this case, the town is not borrowing the money from an external party. The town is borrowing it essentially through a self-financing approach, where we're utilizing money that was set aside for other projects, borrowing it from there temporarily, and then repaying it to those accounts as the land sales proceed. So which projects will be deferred until land sales occur? So there's 2026 capital projects that have been adjusted. Bus garage, Sutton Park, the pickleball, operations modernization. They're not canceled, they're not deferred indefinitely by any means, but the timeline for those, and in some cases the dollar figures has been adjusted. There were strategic initiatives in the strategic plan for this year, the airport plan, the parks needs assessment, food action plan, and a climate plan update. So those projects will be reinstated when the revenue has come in and when staff capacity is available. Which areas will be developed first? So a lot of the larger discussions around phasing and when different parcels will be developed and how, those decisions haven't been made. But I would note that the initial parcels will likely be those 2 that are adjacent to Royal Dornoch, either part of those lands or the entirety of those lands, and that remains to be seen. Council decision making is required on that. And there is an opportunity to phase the sales of these lands to balance risk, costs, and cash flow, so that when the town needs it for whatever amenities that council has approved, then the land sales occur essentially in the same time to balance that risk. What are the town's plans to operate the golf course? The intention, as council has stated, is the intention would be to lease the golf course to a third-party operator, so not operating the course directly. The town would essentially act as a landlord only. And this is similar to the arrangement with the Qualicum Beach Memorial Golf Course, where the town is the landlord, but they operate independently, undertaking all the operational decisions, hiring, etc. So what is the purchase price of the golf course as proposed? So the purchase contract is $8.5 million, which does not include consultation, legal fees, etc. There was an appraisal done in 2024, and that amount was $3.41 million. It was appraised for its recreational value. So the negotiated value, the town considered other values in there, like community benefit, and the rezoning potential. So, to make a long story short, the price is lower than what the seller first asked for, but significantly higher than the town's starting offer. And it's also important to note that the timeline for a council decision has also been negotiated. So the buyer, in this case the town, wanted as long as possible to do its due diligence and consult with the public. The seller wanted as short of a timeline as possible so that they could move on to other projects. And so the timeline that we're going through right now is the result of that negotiation. Who is a private donor and are there conditions? So you would have seen a release that came out late last week that the town has signed a donation agreement with a third-party private donor that has offered to contribute up to $2.125 million, or 25% of the purchase price. The condition on that donation is that the lands identified for parkland would stay as parkland, so they would be protected by a covenant. And so approximately 40 acres of the land, most of the unused holes would be protected by that covenant. The donor has asked to remain unnamed until council's made a decision about whether to proceed with the purchase. So if the town decides not to proceed with it, then they would not be disclosed. But if the town did decide to proceed with the acquisition, then they would be named. I should note that the private donor has no ownership stake, business relationship, or development interest in the Eaglecrest lands, and their contribution is made solely to support the preservation of park and natural areas for the community. What if the land identified for development does not sell, or sells slowly? So we have had professional financial advice about the development of these parcels and also the financial side, and our consultant, Mr. Mark Holland, will be speaking on that in just a moment. So the town has considered the professional advice, and there's budget contingencies built into the plan. The important piece here is that the town does maintain flexibility. Future council decisions will determine which amenities and infrastructure are funded, as well as the timing and the extent of land sales. Could these land sales generate a surplus? So I mentioned that $8.5 million is the purchase price. Is it possible that the land sales would generate more than that? So the modeling indicates that land sales can fully recover the cost and potentially produce surplus. Those extra funds could improve the golf course, trails, drainage, roundabout, etc. Those decisions have not been made, so they would be subject to future council decision making. Will my taxes go up if the land does not sell? So the current acquisition strategy is that it will be fully funded by land sales and not by borrowing. So assuming that remains the case, then there would be no taxation impact. That's the current plan. I should note that future council decision making is required on that. Why does the majority of parkland appear on the west side on the east side of Eaglecrest, not on the west? So the east side of Eaglecrest generally has less road access, and so it's more challenging to develop than the larger parcels on the west with lots of road access. There is an existing covenant that essentially prevents development in one large portion of those lands. Permanent protection of the lands on the east were aligned with the donation proposal that we've now signed that donation agreement. And there are still opportunities to consider and add parkland in the west side of the property through detailed design and further discussions with the community. Are unused fairways, like those adjacent to blind bogeys, suitable for development? So yes, where there's road frontage and services, we have identified a small amount of development potential there, right near the end. The portion kind of deeper into the unused holes of the golf course were much more challenging to develop without significant community impact. So as it stands right now, the only lands in that portion that will be developed are right adjacent to the roadway. Why is the 9-hole course located entirely within Country Club Drive and Eaglecrest Drive, so that central portion not utilizing the other fairways? The compact development that's currently being considered retains the 9-hole golf course, but also allows for housing and parkland development. It makes optimal use of the existing road access and servicing, and from the analysis that's been done by staff and the consultants, development in those areas mitigates a lot of the negative community impact that would happen if some of the other areas of the golf course were developed. What other golf course options were considered? So this is in relation to the actual playable configuration of the course. So there are professional consultants in the golf industry looking at the current layout, how it can be modified, and also assessing the detailed costs of making those changes. And council has not yet approved an actual final design. How will reforested parkland and habitat areas be protected? So as noted, the donation agreement stipulates that approximately 40 acres of land would be permanently protected through a covenant. So no development would be permitted in those areas, only park, and that's a condition of the donation agreement. How will these new park areas be managed? So that's something that has not been fully explored right now. There's a few key options that the town could consider. The town could do the maintenance on those. The future operator of the golf course could do the maintenance of those areas, or the town could contract that to a third party. So that decision will likely not be made until there isn't an operator identified for the golf course, because that'll have a big part in how the town chooses to undertake the maintenance there. How will other infrastructure issues, for example, roads, drainage, Highway 19A access be addressed? So as noted earlier, revenues could address issues like drainage, road, and pedestrian upgrades through the same funding mechanism. But there are technical studies underway to guide these priorities, and council has yet to make a decision on those. How will this project affect the Village Way and Highway 19A roundabout? So council is very aware that the roundabout, or that intersection specifically, is a key priority for many people. So that the timing of when that improvement could possibly incorporate it into the plan would depend on land sale revenues and the phasing strategy that I mentioned earlier. So future council decision making would determine whether the intersection improvements, a roundabout for example, could be a part of a future land sale funding strategy. And with that, I'd like to hand the microphone over to Mark Holland. Mark is a consultant with West Plan Consultants and has been helping us work through this process from the perspective of a consultant and developer. So thank you, Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just have a few slides here just to reiterate a few of the key points behind the work that the team did on your behalf for council. The team includes Modus, which is our lead consultant, and they worked on the site planning and the community engagement work. Cunningham Rivard and Westmark Construction both took care of advising us on the developability and the values of the land, and my team transitioned that into the whole strategic discussion around the public policy questions and the risk assessment, etc. The database behind the financial viability is based on Cunningham Rivard's massive database of land value that is updated basically on a weekly or daily basis across the entire island, but particularly across the mid-island. The land value estimates vary on a per acre basis in recognition that any given acre on this land will have a slightly different variance depending on what ultimately is proposed to be developed, what the unique costs of a curb cut or an access off a road or a pipe might go in there, what trees might want to be preserved, a few minor changes like that. So a range was provided for each of those. The precise amount will not be known until that time, but these are very conservative studies. The numbers, I was quite surprised at how conservative Cunningham Rivard was based on most of my conventional experience here. The density, and I'm going to mention this a few times here in the next few slides, the density drives the value. There's a profit margin associated with each unit, slightly different depending on what size of the unit is. So the more units, the more profit the town makes off the piece of land. Obviously, as the density goes up, the building gets larger, and now we have other impacts that impact the neighborhood, and folks then begin to do a trade-off between the value of the amenities and the financial benefit to the town against the impacts in the immediate area. The number one most important factor in the entire conversation for us was that if the town buys the land, you are both the developer and the regulator. This is a very rare situation to be in. It gives you a maximum amount of control over the most number of variables that would impact risk or value. The valuation scenarios that were explored, Modus's highly experienced site planning team took the numbers and the values that we had, talked with municipal staff and the team about sort of what was in their minds, and then began to look at different scenarios for how development could be laid out on the fairways that were up for discussion, as well as even some of the others, just for context. The areas to be preserved initially were obviously the concentrated area of the golf course, the parks on the extreme eastern fairways, and a discussion on the central fairways that was sort of a mix. A number of scenarios were run, and out of those, the zoning and the discussion that's in front of you today emerged as a reasonable start to this discussion, Rick, and I'll make notes in a moment here about subsequent discussions. The density, height versus parkland, and dollars for other amenities, again, came down to immediately what the trade-offs were. From a strategic value considerations, you have a lot of flexibility in how you approach these lands based on densities, based on the price, and whatever other things that you do want to consider for this. The selection of the land parcels for development began to lay out this different pattern with different impacts in the sub areas. And again, the choice really comes down to the question of height. The Qualicum Beach being in charge of all of this is really fundamental, because you're moving through an entire rezoning process literally in the space of a few weeks. That can be revisited at any point collectively as a community to decide how to deal with the opportunities or the constraints you have in front of you. Risk has been noted. Many of the questions that were raised here that Mr. Sales responded to were underpinned by an observation of potential risk. This is very appropriate for a community. A community is not typically operating in the same way as a developer or a business would typically operate, as much as we like during elections to talk about that. Our role really as a community is stability, regulation, consistency, equality, and many of those other values that we aspire to in community. From a macroeconomic point of view, our team looked at sort of where the winds were blowing. We see quite a few stable and positive from a development point of view, real estate development point of view. The land value on the island is very stable. In fact, prices have been slowly creeping up. They go up and down depending on which area, which type of development, but they are not dropping off the cliff like the rumors you're hearing from Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary, and a few others. Mortgage rates are stable and decreasing as the main rates drop. They're not perfectly tracking the federal rate because mortgage rates, as many of you will know, are intimately married to bond rates. That's a complex piece of economics we don't need to go into, but they are all stabilizing and decreasing, which makes land much more affordable. Something to keep in mind around interest rates and mortgage rates with respect to development. The impact on real estate development of a change in the mortgage rate is twice the impact it'll have in most other areas. And the reason why is that about 70% of the cost of building a building you might live in is financed through debt. So when interest rates go up, the construction, almost the entire cost of construction is typically financed through debt. And so the impact on the cost of a building is significantly higher because of the interest rates, because you're borrowing pretty much the entire cost of the build. Conversely, the ability of the buyer to buy one of those units has also now gone down. So the costs go up and the ability of the buyers go down. So stable interest rates and indications that interest rates are decreasing is a very strong positive indication in our market. Inflation is stable, basically below 3%, but most importantly, all politicians at all levels of government are obsessed with the economy right now. And that means that unlike other periods of your life, when inflation ran away and crazy fiscal policy intervened and we had double-digit interest rates. The probability of that is extremely low to zero at the moment because everyone is watching it and the fundamentals are pretty strong. We do, of course, have impacts from our friends south of the border and other movements around the world of interest. Qualicum Beach's economy, particularly those who choose to purchase new homes in Qualicum Beach, are very highly insulated from most of those influences. We're not dealing with an economy that is essentially swinging in the wings of CUSMA and manufacturing and other key issues. Your retirement base is very stable here. It may impact any of our particular portfolios, but those aren't directly related frequently in a major way to whether we choose to sell a home and purchase a home. So even though the world is bumping up and down, your raft here is actually quite stable. And with respect to price sensitivity, if things really did go sideways and there was a lot of a struggle to try and sell land, the interesting reality here is that the amount of value you're acquiring in post-zoned land for the price you're paying is significant. And if you chose to reduce the price of some of the parcels that you would be selling to developers, you could drop that price by 10%. You might need to sell another acre. Your ability to handle some serious price fluctuations, in fact, even to control them yourself, is unnaturally high because you're both the owner and the developer, should council and their wisdom choose to proceed with this. So you're in control of nearly 100% of the factors, including major ability to respond positively to downturn in market forces. So this gives you a lot of insulation for what otherwise, in my world, we would be quite concerned with certain types of risk. So my final slide before turning it back to Mr. Sales. Oh, great, thank you. The current zoning, why are we going through the current zoning process? You were, as Mr. Sales said, you had a fairly short due diligence period to confirm the purchase of this land. The alternatives were very expensive. This establishes a beachhead of real asset value for you by going through this first rezoning on this. It also brings the discussion forward for you all in a very real way. So you all have a expedited, but a very real and multi-point discussion with each other about this. Again, mainly because of the short timeline on the purchase time. Moving ahead, you have a window of time within which you would like to recoup the sales price, and that's great. We have a few steps ahead to do those, and most all of those will engage conversations with the community. Subdivision tends to be a fairly technical process, so there won't be a lot of discussion directly on that. But any discussion on design, of which we have had many discussions with some of you about design, heights of buildings, what works, what doesn't work, etc. Zoning tweaks are possible. They aren't promised, but just like you've now gone, you're having this conversation, small tweaks to zoning and envelopes and heights and density, you're 100% in control of that. You don't have to go and ask someone else permission for that. And it does give you time after the purchase. You have a good deal of time to address the trade-offs and come to more refined responses as needed, depending on how that unfolds. So I'm here to answer any questions along with the team later on, but I'll hand this back to Mr. Sales now.
Closing comment, and I know that we're going to be getting on to the portion of the meeting where we're hearing from the public, but I just wanted to repeat that something that the mayor will say late in the meeting, but I'll say it now, and that is that after the close of the public hearing today, essentially provincial legislation and case law says that council members can't consider additional input from the public. So if after today's public hearing, after it closes, if any member of the public has questions or comments or wants to talk about this, please reach out directly to town staff. So you can email us at planning@qualicumbeach.com, or you can call us at the town hall phone number. So I wanted to extend that invitation because council will not be available for public input after the close of this public hearing. And that period of time extends until council has made a decision on this OCP and zoning amendment. Thank you, and Mayor Westbrook, I'll conclude the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sales. And the first person on the list for speakers is Steve Butler. Is Steve here? And just to get on bat, Karen Sterner. So when I call somebody up, I also call who's at bat, so we can proceed with the process. Mr. Butler, you have the floor.
Yeah, lights.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Beckler.
Steve, you have to speak right into the microphone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I think we're there.
My name is Steve Beckler, and I'm a resident of Eaglecrest, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I think the current proposal irrevocably changes the nature of our community in Eaglecrest. The bylaws suggested open Eaglecrest wide open to the max of everything. We get these little comments that, oh no, that probably won't happen. The fact is, the way it's written, it is maximum development for maximum money, with no consideration for the community. There has been no collaboration in this process.
Excuse me, I've asked that no one would applaud, and the reason why I'm doing that, because if somebody has an opposing view, they may feel intimidated to speak. So no booing and hissing or applauding would be helpful. Thank you.
I don't think there has been any collaboration in this process. An untenable proposal was given to Eaglecrest with no prior notice and very little information about what the actual plan was. The responses you have received are not part of a collaborative process. The desperation scrambling of a community trying to reduce the damage to our community. Specifically, I think everyone wants the golf course to be resurrected. No one wants it done at the present cost of the community that these suggestions are making. I am adamantly against the current bylaws and suggestions that we are discussing. First of all, any suggestion that the district should be moved to District J specifically means that the subdivision parcels would be at 500 square meters. All of the west side of Eaglecrest, where we're getting nailed, is currently District D, which is 700 square meters. And I see no reason why it should be reduced to 500, with the exception of we get to make more development. The two sections, which are suggested be moved to RD20, Bill 44, and the government's new laws make R1 sufficient for development. R20 far exceeds what anything in this community would make sense. It allows development in sections as small as 124 square meters, and the maximal height guidelines of 12.75 meters, which is 3-story. R1 gives us the development we need. R20 is ridiculous. For section property 3, the suggested change to institutional residential allows a height of 16 meters, which is 4 floors. And by opening that entire section up, it means that we could have 4-story development from one end to the other end of section 3. If there is a need, and I think there is a need for a certain amount of care and institutionalizing homes for support for people, I think there should be maximum of 1 development on the north end, not filling up 3 with 4-story buildings. For the 2 sections that the city already owns, property on both are on Dornoch. Neither property is suitable for development. The long section running from Dornoch to the golf course, you could maybe change the one, or keep the one end at R1 and put 1 house there with open access to the golf course. Section 5, the destruction of that important forest will have a devastating impact upon the environment, wildlife, birds, and the watershed. This property should be designated, which up here is D, which is later labeled 5, should be designated Conservation 1. Perhaps the top end at fairways could be kept as R1 because there's access and two houses built there. The rest is not accessible and would have tremendous negative impact on our environment. What we've heard in the long presentations prior to our opportunity to speak is a whole lot of, don't worry, we'll see what happens, and there could be money to fix the road so there's access if we sell enough, and there could be money for studies on the water. It's already hazardous for pedestrians and cyclists to get in and out of Eaglecrest, and it's also hazardous for vehicles. This is going to create a huge problem, and to be really clear, roundabouts might help traffic flow. They do nothing for pedestrians or cyclists. Oh, am I out? I have 14 more seconds. And if you don't believe me, I encourage you to try and cross the roundabout on Memorial Drive and Rupert Road anytime as a pedestrian. And this is a busier road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name at the beginning. And if you need to speak again, you're welcome to. Please, I've asked you twice not to applaud. Thank you. If you want to speak again, after everyone else has spoken for the first time, you're welcome to speak again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
I am speaking on behalf of myself. I am Karen Sterner and I live in Eaglecrest. I want to talk about three things. For these points, I refer to the property numbered areas of the town's public hearing notice. The community. This purchase is intended to enhance all of Eaglecrest, but unfortunately, your proposal divides the community in half, the east and the west, the haves and the have-nots, separated by Eaglecrest Drive. The east gets all the green space, the west gets all the housing development. The west will experience significant community impact. The argument is presented that there is dense housing already on the east, that is Oceanside Strata and Eaglewood Court. But I would point out that these developments exist beside 27 acres of green space, soon to be parkland. On the west side, not only does your plan describe high-density housing that will increase traffic and probably reduce property values, you suggest that if we wish to keep our last two remaining green spaces, areas 6 and 5, the green corridor and the forest, that we should purchase them. Meanwhile, those on the east side of Eaglecrest get 40 acres of parkland for free. The forest. I wish to describe Area 5, a pocket forest of mature red cedar, Douglas fir, and maple trees between Fairways and Royal Dornoch Drives. Historically, this area functioned as an emergency flood spillway, and you can still see the creek bed that runs through it. Besides flood mitigation, the forest contributes to air quality, provides natural water filtration, and functions as a wildlife corridor, providing food and shelter to birds and animals. I have two photographs here taken in the forest. The bald eagle, federally protected under the Migratory Birds Act, considered a risk because of loss of habitat. The Vancouver Island pygmy owl, you guys have all seen this picture. This picture of the pygmy owl was taken in our forest. They are provincially protected under the Wildlife Act because their declining populations are due to habitat loss, particularly the lack of snags, which are dead standing trees needed for nesting. The forest is a complex mix of vegetation and animal life that supports each other. It is the only remaining pocket forest on the west side of Eaglecrest. You cannot replace a thriving and mature forest with saplings planted 2.5 kilometers away. The plan, spread the green space through all of Eaglecrest, designate the two soon-to-be retired fairways on the west side as parkland, or at least zoned as per the ERA letter to town October 3rd. Create walking loops that traverse these two fairways the green corridor, and the forest. Ensure the future of areas 5 and 6 by rezoning them conservation or recreation. And retain the OCP designation of parks and recreation as per the original wishes of the Qualicum Beach residents. You've made us think we have to sell one part of Eaglecrest to gain another. The plan of your consultant, Mark Holland, in my opinion, is lopsided and his vision foreign to the character of Eaglecrest. Our answer to the town's proposal has two parts. Yes, we want the golf course to remain and thrive, as that is what our community is built around. No, we do not want to sacrifice the west side of Eaglecrest to get it. Save the golf course, ruin the neighborhood is not a successful equation. Suggestions. A parcel tax of $2,000 to $4,000 per household, spread over 10 years, costing each house $200 to $400 per year, would provide $2 to $4 million of income. That get you up to $6,125 thousand at this point, considering the potential donation. Everyone contributes and everyone gains. Use part of your potential donation of $2.25 million to replace the revenue you sought to gain by selling the forest. The idea is not to collect surplus money at this point, but to preserve as much of Eaglecrest as possible. Continue to seek donations. I will contribute.
Ms. Turner, your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is, sometimes I said it, not as good as you said. Amira Karsh. And next is Lois Walker.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for having me up here to speak.
But speak close to the mic, please.
Yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I am a resident of Eaglecrest. When I moved to Eaglecrest 9 years ago, it felt like a community. My neighbors and I would meet regularly at the golf course for movies, special events, vintage sales, dinner specials, and cool drinks outside on the patio in the summer. No more. I have spoken to a number of my neighbors. With the recent notice of a donor who is willing to contribute 1/4 of the purchase price for the Eaglecrest
Just a
lands.
second. Is there a problem over there? Yeah, please go to the lobby if you need to speak on the phone or to someone else. Thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Turner.
Okay, I've spoken to a number of my neighbors. With the recent notice of a donor who is willing to contribute 1/4 of the purchase price for the Eaglecrest lands, we thought the best solution to save Eaglecrest from the ill-conceived development proposals would be for residents to pay for the purchase and relieve the town of the financial burden. The neighbors that I surveyed agreed that it would be better to pay or donate rather than to see the area so ridiculously overdeveloped. Never mind the endless caravans of trucks in and out of the area having to deal with the difficult intersections on 19A. And only to produce the developments without the necessary infrastructure. The proposed developments would be a planned disaster. Some years ago, when we wanted to introduce traffic calming to Country Club Drive, I had a conversation with Qualicum Beach Engineering, who agreed that the speed limit along the stretch of the golf course should be 30 kilometers an hour. We also requested a stop sign, a three-way stop, at the intersection of Royal Dornoch and Country Club. Nothing was done. If such small considerations are not dealt with, one can only imagine what disaster awaits us in a project of this magnitude. Don't force people who are most affected to suffer the long term for a bad decision made by unaffected and unrealistic councillors and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is, please. Louis Walker. Yes, ma'am. And after Louis is Susan Blackman.
Thank you. You hear me okay?
Yeah.
No?
Speak right into the microphone.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And unlike the other speakers, you're getting a twofer with me because I'm also representing Marie Noel, who's a Pelican Beach resident, and myself, who's from Eaglecrest. And we have several comments with respect to the town's plan to amend the official community plan and the zoning in anticipation of making this purchase of Eaglecrest. Now, one of the requirements is that the town amend the OCP and upzone the property prior to the November 1st decision. And I'm struggling to understand for whom this clause was intended. Why would the town want to pre-zone land before completing the transaction? And if this condition was placed by the vendor, clearly they're expecting the condition to be met in place and be in place for their benefit in the event that the sale is not complete. That said, the town have said that if this, excuse me, if their intention is to unwind the amendments if the transaction does not proceed. But before you give third reading, I have to ask, is the town confident that the zoning and these amendments can be reversed, and if so, without inviting litigation from the current owner? Also, given current markets and historically how hard it's been for developers to build any level of density in Pelican Beach, it begs the question, how many financially qualified developers would be potential buyers for these upzone properties? And it's been talked about by, excuse me, other speakers and Mr. Sales, and in terms of the costs, and obviously it'll be over 8.5 with all the factors that need to be addressed, golf course design, potential roundabout park development, and so on. But the non-monetary trade-offs also loom large. It's been very well said by the other couple of the other speakers, but we need to address the fact that there would be a change of character to an already established neighborhood, and this needs to be given serious consideration. Also, as previously mentioned, it seems to be right side, wrong side of the tracks. Some areas would get the green space, and some of us would get 4-story apartment blocks, and including a very inconvenient convenience store in our neighborhood. Traffic also needs to be considered, and subsequent increases in traffic to density need to be addressed. In addition to the roundabout, there would be other infrastructure improvements required to deal with traffic flow and safety. Thirdly, do we really need more densification in Pelican Beach? The 2024 interim housing report states that 2,435 housing units will be required over the next 20 years. Mr. Sales had stated previously that if all eligible properties were to be developed to their maximum allowable density, the current zoning in Pelican Beach allows for some 7,300 new homes. Now, I realize that's a bit of a stretch. More realistic, though, if only half that potential number would be developed, the target number would be exceeded by at least 1.5 times. So without any upzoning in Eaglecrest, without any upzoning in Eaglecrest, we already have the zoning in place to accommodate a significant number of homes over the 20-year target. Pardon me. The greater majority of properties included in this potential rezoning are outside the urban containment boundary. To date, the town has been reluctant to approve higher densification outside this boundary. Why should we now allow this project to proceed, and does this not open the door for other developers to ask to have their properties upzoned? My last comment is to ask the mayor and the councillors to take the opportunity to pause and reflect on the process undertaken to date. Please consider all the risks before proceeding with the third reading of the proposed amendments. Without more transparency, more public input, and having a well-researched and well-reasoned business case available to the public. Is this project in its current form worth this much disruption to our community and the monopolization of finance is such that other important projects will have to be deferred. This council was elected on the promise of respecting and enforcing the OCP to protect the character of our town. Mayor Westbrook and councillors, you were the ones making the decisions that it impact not only on Eaglecrest but on Qualicum Beach for years to come.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Susan. Where's Susan? And after Susan is Patrick Arundel.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and residents. I'm here today to raise some serious, Susan Blackman from Chartwell, and I'm representing myself. I'm here today to raise serious concerns about the proposed $8.5 million purchase of Eaglecrest Golf Course. You are proceeding with a major land purchase while a critical public health and infrastructure issue remains unaddressed. At the September 17th council meeting, which was available to the public, Chief Administrative Officer Lou Varela mentioned that we have $900,000 worth of asbestos cement pipe issues in the Eaglecrest neighborhood that need to be solved, plus $1.75 million for storm main replacement and drainage. That's $2.65 million in infrastructure costs that exist, as she stated, beyond the purchase itself. Surely both of these issues should be resolved before planning any further development for this land. I wish to give kudos to Lou Varela, Mayor and Council, for acting to test Qualicum Beach water and issuing a memo, although it wasn't dated, probably in 2024, to reassure residents their water was safe. That doesn't mean it is still safe, and it doesn't mean the pipes do not need to be removed. Asbestos cement pipes have a maximum life expectancy of 75 years. Some crumble sooner than others, but they will all crumble. Asbestos fibers will break apart from the cement from the inside and will become a major cause of maintenance. It is not if it will happen, it is when. Asbestos cement pipes were banned in the United States by the EPA in the early 1990s because they were found to be the cause of many cancers. While Health Canada declares they are not a health risk, Prevent Cancer Now have agreed with USA researchers, and the National Research Council has confirmed there is reason for concern. I didn't know that we shouldn't ask questions, so I have some questions here that you can mull over. I would like to ask Mayor Westbrook and Council, number one, who estimated the $900,000 cost for these asbestos cement pipes? Is this $900,000 based on remediation or removal of all or part of the total asbestos cement pipes in the Eaglecrest Golf Course land? This is a significant difference, and residents deserve input into which approach is being taken and why. Are all of the asbestos cement pipes on the proposed golf course purchased land, on the land being protected by the anonymous donor, or on adjacent residential properties? Do all workers involved in any maintenance, remediation, or removal of these pipes wear full hazmat suits? And is the general public kept away from these work areas during that work? And why hasn't this been dealt with prior to entering into this land purchase? Qualicum Beach has 26 kilometers of asbestos cement pipes in the ground delivering drinking water to people's homes. Replacing asbestos cement pipes cost $2.2 million per kilometer as of 2022, which indicates we are looking at a cost of close to $60 million to replace these pipes. Residents will want you to act prior to detecting unhealthy levels in residents' drinking water. Asbestos cement pipes must be removed prior to the development on the Eaglecrest lands, no matter who owns it. We need sound, accurate answers to make an informed decision about whether this $8.5 million land purchase is the best use of taxpayers' dollars. Our drinking water infrastructure must be the top priority. This sale should not proceed until removal of AC pipes have been budgeted for and the removal scheduled. I'm asking Council to provide residents with a full and accurate accounting of where all asbestos cement pipes are located in Qualicum Beach, how and when they will be removed, and the total cost to remove them safely. I am not the only person who has grave concerns that we are going to run out of money, and ultimately it is the taxpayers who will be left with increased taxes. I request the town to pause this land purchase at this time.
Thank you. And what I think with council agreement, that when you have a question, I'll consider a rhetorical question, and the staff will provide the answer in a report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's after Susan.
Patrick T. Bando.
Either one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm a resident of Eaglecrest Estate. I've been here 13 years. Love the place. The Eaglecrest Golf Course purchase is fundamentally flawed in its headlong rush to carry out the overpayment, millions of dollars above assessed value, for a piece of property that has been severely neglected. Flawed in the rezoning, which may result in the building of 4 to 6 story condos / apartments and or commercial buildings, are all contrary to the existing character and building style that now exists in Eaglecrest Estate. Flawed in its proposed location of a care facility that would be better located within the town core and its numerous amenities. Flawed in taking monies away from various promised projects to accommodate the overpayment of $8.5 million, with the result that this overpayment only succeeds in causing a higher and unwanted density on most of the proposed building parcels. In the hopes that the said money can be speedily recovered through housing densification and commercial development. A lot of speculation in thinking that you can recover your money very efficiently and quickly. This offer of purchase goes against all sound economic and investment practices. The council, in its headlong rush to spend $8.5 million, will incur many more millions of additional dollars above the conditional purchase, as previously mentioned by other speakers. Price for such items as ongoing maintenance, repairs, and other required upgrades. There is also little thought regarding the process of development on said lands and its overall impact of noise, dust, industrial traffic, etc., or consideration of a timely start and completion of construction dates for any of the areas in question. Nor is there evidence of guarantees or performance bonds and criteria imposed on the developers. If the mayor and council wish to leave a lasting legacy, let it be based on logic, but more importantly, on due consideration for the concerns and welfare of the public, us the taxpayers, and those most closely affected. As a resident of Eaglecrest, I believe the entire conditional offer is poorly thought out with a rush to completion that will only lead to a very poor outcome, depriving the citizens of Qualicum Beach of better and more positive legacy based on full disclosure and true informed consultation. I sincerely hope that the mayor and council will do right by the wishes of all residents of Qualicum Beach in making a sound and proper offer to create not only green space, but to develop housing that is in harmony with the unique character of Eaglecrest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durando.
Thank you, Council. My name is Tim Bird, and I represent the Bluffs on Eaglecrest. And we are here represented, our president is here, and I'm an elected council member. And we are here mostly to put our support behind the Eaglecrest Community Association. You'll be hearing from Bill later, I think, on this, so I won't need to take any of his flame there, but what I do want to say is we have, I'll just read these remarks that were put together with the idea of, mostly we are in the West, and we are, for people that don't know, we are towards the ocean and very close to that area C on this map. We have some questions on area C and why that idea is predicated on this whole process prior to the whole deal being signed. So that's one thing. But let me just say that our concerns are that the town's plan to develop the area west of the Country Club Drive will significantly increase the population and density at one end of the community. The Bluffs currently has an agreement with the town to allow people residing in the immediate neighborhood to walk through the Bluffs, which is incidentally private property, and to access the stairway to the beach. So this is all about beach access. This agreement was signed in 2008 with the understanding that the golf course would continue to exist in its form and the community continuing to exist since we've had extra density put in again to the west. And then that's the cottages and the woods. We're experiencing increasing traffic through our property and expect that there will be increased traffic with the proposed redevelopment. Over the past year, we have experienced 2 property thefts for the first time, and we attribute some of that to increased traffic. The town has an easement between 1013 and 1021 Eaglecrest Drive, and this is by way of a solution. And that's designated as parkland currently. And we think, there are a few of us that could think that it could be developed into a public access point to the beach so that all of the residents of Eaglecrest and others could be allowed access, and it lines up nicely with the stairway down on Seacrest, or with the beach access down on the stairway, or down on Seacrest. The proposal includes a redesignation of land at the corner of Country Club Drive and Eaglecrest Drive from parkland to commercial. We have concerns about having a commercial enterprise in this location, as it will surely bring down the value of adjacent properties. And we are wondering about the environmental health of that piece of land, since it's had decades of oil, fuel, weed killer, chemicals, etc. So I understand there is an environmental assessment ongoing. It would be interesting to see what the results of that is. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your effort in this matter, and I'll close there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bird.
After Bill Scott is Darrell Vance.
Darrell Vance is after.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilors. I'm Bill Scott, a resident of Eaglecrest and a director of the Eaglecrest Residents Association, and I'm here speaking on its behalf. With reference to the association's October 3rd letter to Council, I would like to highlight its contents for those who may not have had an opportunity to review it in its entirety. I ask for your indulgence, as I might slightly exceed my time limit, but the ERA represents some 300 households and nearly 600 electors who desire to live in a thriving, integrated, and unified neighborhood offering diverse housing forms, recreational facilities, and social opportunities. The ERA has extensively engaged the community and determined that, on balance, there is consensus that public ownership of the golf course lands is the better alternative to private ownership. It provides the best opportunity to have an ongoing and constructive role in the revisioning of Eaglecrest. However, that will only hold true if the town, as the owner and developer, mandates that those directly impacted are given an active role in the development and application process. This acquisition and proposed revisioning of the Eaglecrest Golf Course land will bring significant and potentially irreversible changes to our long-established suburban neighborhood and to Qualicum Beach as a whole. The proposed bylaws are not minor or typical. They establish a broad framework of land use designations and pre-zoning, introducing new commercial and institutional uses and concentrating residential development in a single area for which there is no precedent in the entirety of Qualicum Beach. Support is not without concern. The town's timing of releasing material, whether purposeful, inadvertent, or simply the result of not having enough time or human resources, has made it extremely difficult for the layperson to fully understand the rationale for what is being proposed, to grasp the implications for the neighborhood, their homes and lives, without a clear and meaningful commitment in having ongoing community representation in this revisiting process. It's amazing to think that between September 9th open house and September 17th council meeting, we went from, what do you think, to reading the bylaw amendments telling us, here's what you're going to get. And now today, October 6th public hearing, is the sober second thought in advance of these bylaws being enacted for a November 1st contractual deadline. If council genuinely believes that we should go into this with eyes wide open, perhaps they should take the advice once given by Simon the Garfunkel. Slow down, you move too fast. The acquisition of the golf course lands has precipitated the need for cash to fund not only the direct, but the yet-to-be-determined indirect costs. We have been told by your professional planning consultant that the denser the development, the more cash you will get, but then softens it with, well, that's the maximum, not necessarily what we will eventually build. Well, to our mind, if cash is needed and denser gets more cash and denser is allowed, then it would follow that denser it will be. There is no need to introduce new, non-compatible development zones like NRC 1 or institutional residential 1, or to apply a rarely used R20 to increase density when R1, with its allowable forms of duplexes and houseplexes, can quadruple density to 4 units per parcel and allow 3-story units without any significant change to the community's form and character. The proposal for parkland disproportionately assigns green space, preventing a functional, pedestrian-friendly connection between our diverse community nodes and its many natural amenities. And if the recently released request for proposal to reconfigure the golf course proceeds, it will give permanence to this disproportionate parkland assessment. Therefore, to reiterate our October 3rd comments, council must, first of all, amend the current OCP bylaw and its future iterations to include the current section 2.2.9, which directs the town to protect in perpetuity the town's network of open spaces, including the Eaglecrest Golf Course.
Mr. Scott, would you wrap it up, please?
I still have just a bit more to indulge me.
Well, I have to hold the line on everybody with 5 minutes, but you can speak the second time, if you'd like to.
I will include the...
No, Mr. Scott.
Still says 33 seconds.
It includes the requirement
Oh,
of master...
okay, my apologies. Go
Can I
ahead.
have that time back?
Yes, you can, go ahead.
Include the requirement for a master neighborhood plan to be created in conjunction with the Eaglecrest community before any redevelopment or reconfiguration is allowed. Include the design elements of the master neighborhood plan as a standalone development permit area. Include the Eaglecrest community as an equal participating partner in the development application process prior to approval. Allow all developable lands within Eaglecrest to be zoned R1. Formally dedicate all proposed green space, including the golf course, as parkland protect it from development. And thank you. The association looks forward to assisting the residents of Eaglecrest and being the town's partner in making this once-in-a-lifetime a reality. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Mr. Scott, and my apologies for interrupting you.
Should we clarify for the blinking red?
Yeah, the blinking red, I thought that was the end of the time, but it has to stop blinking before it goes. I'm getting different feedback from different folks, so I'll leave it to Ms. Benson to tell what's going on.
When it's red, you're finished.
When it starts flashing red, it's finished?
Yes.
Okay. You sure? Okay. Next is Daniel Vance. Mr. Vance. Oh, sorry. Darrell Vance. And after that, Ron Everard.
Hello. There we go. My name is Darrell Vance. I'm a member of the Eaglecrest Golf Course. I speak for myself, but I do know I have supporters behind me. If they don't agree with what I say today, we'll deal with that tomorrow. I have in my hands a design of the possible new layout for the golf course. This was first done in April of 2025, and then there was a redesign in August of 2025. My one question that I have on this, if this was available, why wasn't this brought up at the council meeting or the information meeting we had in September? We also, members of the golf course, we had a meeting with Luke Sales in September, and if we would have had this in our hands at that time, a lot of things could have been discussed then, rather than me being up here now. That's a question, I don't need an answer for it, but think about it. We are, when I say we, I say I again, but those guys back there, we are passionate about keeping the golf course going and alive. It's our livelihood. We don't play pickleball, we don't mountain bike. We fish sometimes, but golfing is our livelihood. We meet there to have fun, to have friends. We used to eat there a lot, we used to drink there a lot. It was a good time. That's been taken away from us. This design that is put forward here is shrinking the golf course again. We've gone from 18 of the best holes on the island as far as I was concerned. We've gone down to 9. Now the new design, we want to take those 9 holes and make this course even smaller. It doesn't have to be. We can use the land that's there, and for a lot cheaper than what is proposed in the changes, we don't have to make those changes. Whoever came up with this design did not have any talks with any of the golfers there that I know of. I know there's a couple of people involved, but I'll leave that. We can save a lot of money. We can keep this as a par 35 rather than a par 32. We don't want a little pitch and putt golf course. Brigadoon has one, which is great. We don't need another one. We want to keep this a golf course where we can be proud of, where people that are waiting to get on other golf courses will come and play there because it's in great shape and it has 9 very good holes to play. Whoever the designer is, I haven't met him, I don't know him. If he would take the time to confer with myself or some of the other members, maybe go out there for a walk and discuss matters with them, I believe we can get this golf course done for a lot cheaper than what is proposed here and keep it in great shape and keep it as a par 35. We do not need bridges on it. We do not want to take the par 5 and make it a par 3. It doesn't have to be. It'll be safe. It'll be safe to the owners of the houses on the new proposed 9. Just change the angle a little bit. And you know what, that's about all I've got to say. We're passionate that we want to keep this golf course. We're passionate that we want to keep it a good, viable golf course, and not a little executive par 3 pitch and putt thing. With keeping this in mind, it'll bring the people back to the clubhouse, it'll bring their membership back, and it'll bring revenue in for everybody concerned. That's all I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Next is Mr. Everard.
Your Worship, members of Council, thank you for hearing me, and thank you for this session, and thank you for the work you have done as a council. I am almost embarrassed about some of the comments that have been made on social media about the work that you've done. Suggestions that information has been withheld, that you've been deceitful, that you've been manipulative. It has no place in this community. And I can't remember a time when I've been part of the process in this community where there's been more information shared than there has been with this. What did we hear? 11 meetings with residents associations or with residences, 2 open houses, requests made to staff, requests made to counselors for information. Most or all of them addressed. Mr. Harrison has been on Facebook providing additional information. Things come along when things come along. It may have been better had there been more time to react to this, but it is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. And for people that wanted to get informed, there's been time and information has been there. So candidly, I don't know what more time would give us. We hire a consultant who does tremendous work for us, gives a full-blown report, gives all kind of information. At some level, I think you have to have confidence in what we've been told. And the main thing that we've been told today is that public ownership of this golf course is preferable to private ownership. And the reason that it's preferable is throughout this whole process, this community, Eaglecrest, all the other parts of Qualicum Beach will have input. And many of the comments that have been made today are premised on decisions having been made about what will be there. Those decisions have not been made. The members of Eaglecrest, the members of the community, will have an opportunity as this proceeds, and it will proceed over a matter of years. So it's not a done deal, and it's erroneous to suggest that it is. What hasn't been emphasized is there is a downside to private ownership. And unfortunately, in this community, we've had mixed results with private developers. You only have to look at what's happened with the College Inn to see what happens when a developer abandons a project, loses money, leaves. What the town inherits is the liabilities that go with all of that. As some of you know, I live on Crescent Road. Below me, and I've FOIP'd the documents from the town, went back to 1980, there have been 4 failed developments on that property. The last one was 20 years ago. The first the town realized that it had an issue was when they got a letter from the geotechnical company monitoring the slope. We're out of here. We're not being paid. We're not monitoring the slope anymore. The town had a look at the performance bond that they had in place, realized it probably wasn't big enough. It had a problem. And that's what happens when it's left to private developers. When a project fails, it will come back to you, and it will come back with a vengeance. So I understand that there's people that are opposed to private ownership, but with a project like this, in my respectful view, it's the better approach. And I think that point is well made by the consultant who looked at all of it and why this is different, particularly in this community. One of the other objections that's been raised is that it's a lot of money. In my respectful view, $8.5 million with over $2 million of the backstop by somebody who's doing it out of the goodness of their heart, if I can put it that way. It doesn't, from what we know and what we've been told, what we've been shown, they're not asking for anything other than a portion of it be preserved as parkland. It doesn't get any better than that. And why people would want to second guess that decision is beyond me. I think you take it at face value, and there's somebody who is probably outside of this community who has faith in this project. And I think we should have faith in this project, and we should have faith in what you're doing. There's been a suggestion made that this should have gone to a referendum. There was comments made about the asbestos pipes. If we're going to be repairing asbestos pipes, we're not going to do that for $8.5 million, and we're not going to do that with municipal money. That's going to involve the provincial and the federal government. And that's not what we're here talking about today. We're talking about the purchase of Eaglecrest. I see my time is up, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I have more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Mr. Fleischer. Mr. Taylor, or Mr.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Kurt Fleischer. I live on Cottage Drive in Eaglecrest. I just want to mention that I am on the directorship of the ERA. These are the opinions of my own and my neighbors who put this together, so it's the ERA.
Speak a little louder.
Oh, I'm to say, I represent myself here, not the ERA, although I am a director. So, Mayor and council members, let me begin by saying I'm appreciative of the opportunity to address you here today on behalf of myself and all the residents on Cottage Drive. My wife and I live on Cottage Drive in a home that we had built for our retirement in 2023. Before we built it, it was our understanding that the town approved the cottages of Eaglecrest development under the condition the golf course would remain in operation. There was an overall plan we were asked to adhere to that showed hedges, gates, style and character of home, sidewalks, benches, trees, entrance monuments, as well as practice greens and a tee box directly in front of our view. It's for these reasons we purchased the lot. When we chose to build our home, we had a list, as most people have, on what our needs and what our wants. And the one need that was non-negotiable was the view, and there was no compromise on that. After talking to Lisa, who was the owner of the, at that time, Simahama Golf Course, and checking with town records regarding the zoning, looking at the building guidelines provided us, we felt comfortable we were protected from any obstructions behind our home. After all, the course was zoned recreation. We had a practice chipping green behind us and a great view down to hole number 6 to watch golfers tee off. It was perfect. It's why people buy homes on golf courses. We had been told this is all, had we been told this is all temporary, we would never have purchased our lot, let alone build our home in that particular location. We spent countless hours drawing, designing our home to build this into our lot and take advantage of the views overlooking the golf course with the mountains in the background that drew us to this beautiful location to begin with. We knew there would be noise at times and traffic and future construction on the site, at the side of our home and in front. There was a trade-off that was for the amazing view that we overlooked that. We lived with it. We literally spent 7 to 8 months in our backyard. We had barbecues there, we relaxed in the evenings, we watched the sun cast shadows over the course, watched the deer graze in front of us. I'm sure it's shared by most of the neighbors. It's why we, as well as our neighbors, chose to buy or build our homes here in Eaglecrest on Cottage Drive. We certainly commend the town in its efforts to try and save the golf course. It's definitely worth saving. I don't think anyone here would argue that fact. Residents are worried about the mental and financial implications of those directly affected. My wife and I, along with so many of our neighbors, have had many sleepless nights since all this began. Imagine waking up one morning to a 4-story building staring into your backyard. It would be very disturbing. It's easy to throw the NIMBY around when it doesn't affect you, and maybe that's why not one single person from town or Motus ever came by to talk to anyone directly impacted, even after being invited. We understand development of some form is always necessary in a way of life. We have 25 vacant lots right in front and beside our homes on Cottage Drive, including the Thompson property directly west of us, that could potentially take years to complete. This will entail the excessive inconvenience associated with construction, the added traffic from sub-trades, suppliers, cement trucks, gravel trucks up and down Country Club Drive, where safety is already a concern. And to even consider or pursue commercial development on a corner of Eaglecrest and Country Club in a land that would better suit a beautiful park or gazebo and benches for the community to gather, it is totally inappropriate and would only satisfy the developers and certainly not the local residents. to fill the entire hillside of Westwood Country Club with 3- and 5-story buildings to beat tragedy. And even though the town currently owns hole number 4 running along Highway 19A, more care and thought should go into ensuring that people on Fairway Drive still have some form of privacy while enjoying their backyards. Please do not let money guide every facet of your decision making. The decisions you make now are long lasting and could cause devastating circumstances to this community. Eaglecrest is a suburban subdivision of mostly retired seniors, and to create a whole new community within a community with the speed and pace of this endeavor is something even large cities would take years to plan, not months. We agree with the ERA on this, and if the mayor and council truly care about this community, change the bylaws for the upcoming OCP to what the ERA has recommended, and please look out for the needs of all of Eaglecrest, but not some. We're all neighbors. That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fleischer. Next, Taylor. This is R. Taylor.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you.
You have to speak right into the phone.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My name is Rosemary Taylor. I live in Eaglecrest. And my comments are more aimed at the ambience of Eaglecrest when all is said and done and everything's been ironed out. There was a very good letter sent by the Eaglecrest Residents Association to Mayor and Council and all members of the Eaglecrest Residents Association the other day, and I'm paraphrasing part of some of their comments because I agree with them. I'm paraphrasing to a certain extent. They mentioned that they're hoping for a thriving, integrated and unified neighbourhood with diverse recreational and social opportunities, maintaining strong social and personal connections. And I think that's very important in a development of any kind, like Eaglecrest, where we're all in the same area. They have heard from people all over Eaglecrest, and it was originally developed as a golf course, but the community desires a broader range of recreational options, public access to green space and gathering places, and that is something to me that I think is most important. The ability to meet and gather and get to know our neighbours more than we have the opportunity at the moment. We need pathways between houses to get to different roads, community pathways, and this leads me on to the next thing that I'm sure nobody will be surprised to hear me say. The Eaglecrest letter goes on to say that there are many ideas for the parkland that we're hearing today, and they should incorporate native plants, and I'm quoting here, native plants and pollinator pathways, to which should include shrubs, trees, greenery, because as we all know, the insect and bird communities are going downhill badly, and this is a great opportunity to incorporate in all the building and development that's going on, to incorporate the pollinator pathways and the habitat needed to encourage the insect and bird communities to thrive. They're not doing so well at the moment. So my plea is to incorporate this in whatever development is taking place. I think it creates the ambience of a pleasurable place for people to come and visit from all parts of the area, not just Eaglecrest residents. And the more beautiful we can make our area and neighbours working together to create pollinator pathways and community, down community pathways between roads or wherever there's an opportunity would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. And next is another Taylor. Terry Taylor? There you are.
Can everybody hear me? Am I
No, a little closer.
A little closer?
Yeah, you have to lean into it.
Is that all right now?
Yeah, project your voice, Terry.
Okay, Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm concerned, I'm Terry Taylor, Tournament Tour, and I speak on behalf of myself. And one area I am concerned with, since I live on Tournament Tour, zones 5 and 6 are right close to us. And so 2 days ago, I walked through both of these areas. It took half of the way through number 5 was fine. The other half took a little bit of direction finding and bushwhacking. And so I had a good look at both of these sites. And comes to mind a concern that has been expressed already, that the way it stands now is basically development for the west and amenities for the east, so I am concerned about this. I'm also concerned about, I had read that there was the original protection, the fact that these two areas are still not built on is because they were set aside for flood protection. And living on Tournament Tour, if there's a major problem with flooding, a major storm, we live basically right below number 5. And I noticed that there was a ditch going through there, I assume for flood protection, that hasn't been altered since the area has been left the way it is. Also concerned that I'd like to see this preserved for wildlife and recreation. It's used by deer at the present time as well as songbirds. And one concern that I did have is that a lot of people are concerned using this area to get rid of their garden garbage. And so I've been concerned about the possibility of fire protection. And there are a lot of, I know that snags are important for wildlife, but also I'm concerned about the fact that there are a fair number of dead cedar trees, and cedar burns very readily. And there's garden waste there, so I would like this area protected, a little trail put through, but also some removal of any dangerous fire material that's been left and control of these snags. And then through number 6, it would be relatively easy to put a little pathway through there and shrubs and pollinated flowers put on the side. And then also I think that's basically what I was going to say. And I'd also like to end off with thanking council and decision makers for removing Anbury Park from the development and protecting it continuing to protect it as a nice little park. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is, I think it's Warren Ionette. Did I say that right? That's you. Come on up. Thank you. And after that, Lan Flynn. Go ahead. Now I mentioned the name and that is Lan Flynn. Go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name's Warren Giannett. I live in the Eaglecrest area, and I'm just talking on my behalf. Yeah, here you go.
You lift it up with it.
How's that? How's that? There we go. So specifically, I want to talk about the corner of Eaglecrest Drive and Country Club Drive. The commercial component that's been, I guess, identified in this zoning change. I don't understand why we would plunk, technical term, into the middle of a residential area, a commercial project. Now, I've heard talk about a convenience store. Convenience stores are something that's used on the perimeter of subdivisions, not in the middle of a subdivision. It would make more sense if it's up by the highway where at least you have traffic going by that could use the convenience store. Now to have it down in our neighborhood, all it's doing is attracting people to come into the area. It's creating more traffic. It's going to have a light pollution to the area. And then you've got the hours that it's going to stay open. We're going to have traffic going from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. It's the only way it can be a viable thing. The other thing that was talked about was a coffee shop. Well, a coffee shop, okay, that would be nice. But we have a nice clubhouse that is right beside it. And you're going to have one competing against the other. I'm hoping that we'll want the golf course to be successful in the long run. We don't want to take away revenue opportunities from it. So that's specifically in talking about that. Me and my wife, we bought a lot similar to Gerd. We looked at that view that was there, loved the spot. We wanted to live in a low-density area. Qualicum Beach is known for that, not for a high development area. So we figured, oh, let's move down there. We lived out in Coombsford. We've lived in this area for 25 years. So we took the opportunity to come down there. We designed the home so that it's all glass on one side, so that we're looking out onto the golf course. I guess it's hole 6. I golf at Pheasant Run, not at Eaglecrest. Sorry, guys. Anyways, it's a beautiful spot. Now I'm going to have possibly a commercial building pop up with, it could be 3 to 4 floors high, depending on the design, looking down into my backyard. When I wake up in the morning and look out my window, I don't see a nice golf course, I see a store. Great, this is what I wanted. We talked about values dropping. Definitely the values of the homes in that area will drop. Now in a general sense, I want to talk about the whole development plan. To me, it all comes down to consultation with the people who live in the area. Do I think that multifamily residential buildings could be built there? Yes, but in a small way with parkland associated built around it to lessen the impact on the neighborhood. We don't want to change the character of the neighborhood. We want to have the right to consult and have that conversation. My suggestion would be to put everything zoned into R1 and then talk about the opportunities for the institution and the multifamily, but deal with that with the people that are there at the time. And the last thing I have is it's generous for an individual to bring up $2 million to ensure parks on the east side, which is very nice. But maybe we could defer $2 million of development on the west side so that money could be used for parkland. The prime location would be the corner of Country Club Drive and Eaglecrest Drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we getting there? Next, Len Flint. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Let me first apologize. I'm the first person here, I think, who is not a resident of the area. So I almost feel embarrassed. So my presentation will take a slightly different tack. I did look at this a month or so ago and felt that in terms of the development of residences, that you could simply go to single lots and still get the money back. But that's an aside. I defer to the people who live closest to that in terms of the comments they have given me. So my concerns are in other areas. And there are 3 areas that I want to speak to very briefly. Most effective use of that central area, we refer to as the recreational space. Potential traffic issues, very briefly. And the overall financial plan. On recreational space, I certainly very much support the forest, parkland and trail areas plan, but not yet convinced, as one person said, that if the residential areas are developed, the space left for what would essentially be a par 3 pitch and putt is necessarily the best way to use that space. And I think there are other opportunities for that space that might perhaps have wider appeal. The bottom line, let's take a year to make that right. Now let's talk about traffic, very briefly. And of course, when we talk about traffic in the area, everyone talks the roundabout. Having lived in the UK and much of Europe over many years, traffic circles abound for decades. However, they're designed for efficient movement of traffic. They do not have to be $3 million tourism attractions. Overall financial plan. Let's have no surprises on this one. I would suggest there are 3 distinct potentially overlapping areas to consider. Number 1, we spend a lot of money. Number 2, as if the plan proceeds this way, money starts to come back to us in terms of people buying lots. And number 3, longer term income that we might get from some of those recreation areas. The first 2 are the most important to me. I've looked at this in a 10-year financial model, up to 2035. I'm not sure I'll be around, but nevertheless, that's what I've done. And the concern for me is this: 8.5 million to start off with, maybe 9. Another 6, 7, 8 million for all of the other stuff that needs to be done, even before the money starts to flow in. So I rather question how we can achieve that without there being some implication on financing costs and therefore possibly taxes for the public. So in short, I think we need to have a very much clearer understanding of the financial model in all of this, if it all proceeds, over a longer period of time. So generally supported overall, but subject to the concerns that have been expressed by many people here. But let's take the time to decide what is the best way to use that recreational space. Has been, in my opinion, a potentially positive development for the town if done right. But no financial surprises. Let's have a long-term plan where we fully understand how and why we can make those investments and yet have no impact on the taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Brian Jenkins.
Hear this? Hear this?
No, not yet. No, speak up.
How about there? Way better. Brian Jenkins, and I live on Poplar Avenue. I lived in Eaglecrest in a log house during my childhood when it was a farm, so I'm kind of close to it. First of all, I don't think the town of Qualicum Beach has any business being in the development business at all. From a lender's perspective, because that's what we are, this is a disaster. It's full of holes, it's incomplete, and we shouldn't be going here. And I implore the other councillors not to go down this rabbit hole.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Kathy Scott.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. My name is Kathy Scott, and I speak as a resident of Eaglecrest. In the Mayor's own words, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to regain control of lands that matter to our town and its residents. While I agree that ownership of the Eaglecrest lands is better out of private hands based on events over recent years, I'm very concerned with the breakneck speed at which the amendments to the OCP for rezoning are being pushed through. It seems out of step with thoughtful, deliberate and collaborative discussion with those most directly affected. It is also out of character for council to consider such drastic changes as those being proposed and currently at third reading as relate to Eaglecrest lands when one considers previous OCP amendments requested by other proponents for other projects within the town. As a prime example, we all recall the long and arduous but eventually effective OCP amendments that allowed for extensive, thoughtful development at the Pheasant Glen Golf Resort. That particular development did not affect any current residents, whereas the proposed changes to the zoning in Eaglecrest will directly impact many long-term residents. Two ends of the spectrum. One project taking years for passing of the OCP amendments to zoning for an area with no current residents, and one presumably taking just weeks within and affecting a well-established neighborhood. For this once-in-a-generation opportunity, please respect both the current and future generations of residents of Eaglecrest by taking careful consideration and well-thought-out planning consideration for any changes to zoning, land use, and operations of Eaglecrest lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Jim Bennett.
Thank you. 17. You don't need a mic.
I'm going to make sure you hear me. All five of you. Your Worship, council members, I want to echo some of the comments that have been made about thanking council for the opportunity to be part of this discussion. I want to thank you for taping your council meetings so that we can watch what happened in September in the development of this bylaw and be more aware. And I want to congratulate your staff. I think especially Mr. Sales. By the way, I'm an Easterner.
No, speak to the...
I was just saying that. I just happened to be facing that way, but I was talking to you, Your Worship. I'm an Easterner. I'm on the other side of Yanbury, in the Oceanside strata. I want to thank you for recognizing that we have a covenant on our title. Doesn't say anything about parkland. Talked about golf course. And I want to thank you for what I think is acknowledgement of that fact. Mr. Sales attended our annual general meeting for the Oceanside Strata this week, and I think he was well received. I don't think my neighbors were opposed to the concept of parkland for that area. But I want to say something to the Westerners behind me, who I'm not allowed to look at. I want to say that, you know, just give us our 5 holes back, holes 5 to 9. That way, we could have our golf course in our backyards, and you could have more green space on the west side. I hate being an Easterner. Just the thought of it, because I think of other Easts. But anyhow, Your Worship and Council, I want to echo a couple of other comments that have been made, because I'm concerned about the process. I don't like you being developers. I don't mind a local government land banking. And that might be the generational opportunity. Because I think you've got all the control that you need right now without owning the golf course lands. I don't like you being my regulator and a developer. Especially when it comes to the concept that you all seem to like of institutional housing of up to 5 stories on the west side. You should be thinking of that opportunity only as a regulator, not as a developer, to say, well, 5 stories, we get more money, we get more of the money back for the taxpayers for this plan, which is good, but on the other hand, it does create I perceived conflict of interest in my mind. I don't think you can do both. You think about the False Creek plans in Vancouver at Expo 86. That was sort of a land banking that went on there. But when the province could get out of it, they sold it off and they let the private sector develop it. And the city of Vancouver regulated what would go there. So that's my thought for the day. Am I opposed to parkland on the east side? Not opposed to it. I'd be happy to have our golf course because it's in our covenant and it does not say parkland. So on that issue, I ask you to consider that if you were to move forward with this bylaw as it is, purchase lands, that part of that is a commitment at the town's cost to change our covenant to parkland or golf course. Otherwise, we have no protection from future councils or future thoughts that the community might have. So thank you for the opportunity. Good afternoon. I was speaker 17.
Thank you, Mr. William Dunlop.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. You'll have to excuse my accent, and half of you won't understand what I'm about to say. And no, I didn't fall off the boat. I live in Royal Dornoch Drive. Our garden backs on to the D zone in your plan. I have serious issues with this change of zoning. From residential to residential that you are proposing. This area was not developed for a reason. When this area was built, there on the left, the green belt area is for wildlife and trees, and the other part of it is an open water course which runs down through there. There's an open ditch running more than halfway down through there, a culvert which goes through below the roadway. I can also show you, we have got the previous owners of the house that we live in must have had to put in weeping tile through our garden to stop the water running down through the garden into our house. And so I take real issue about what sometime in the past, sometime in the next 10, 15, 20 years, there's going to be a flood, and where's this water going to go? And I don't like the thought of it. The other point is, if you decide to take down these trees that are behind us, we have 3 or 4 trees, cedar trees in our garden, and I suspect that they will, being cedar trees, they are shallow rooted. And as a consequence of you taking down, they will lose the protection, and they'll probably have to be taken down too, because I don't feel they come to pay for the insurance should they be blown over. The other point I have to make is I can't figure out how council can decide to take trees down when they feel like it, and us as private owners are not allowed to anymore. There is more than enough money in the old number 17 and 17 fairways to develop, which will have enough money, and you don't need to get too greedy with trying to raise more funds. So I take issue with this whole concept. I could say a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you. And don't lose your heavenly accent. Next is Victor Lepik. After Victor, Doug Robb.
Good afternoon. I lived in Eaglecrest, and I've been here for about 10 years. And I've been to the last meeting that we had up here at the center. And I was so impressed with the way the council put this together. I spoke to Mark, and his presentation was excellent. I thought it was very open. I looked at how many people from Eaglecrest and around the community put their things in the jars and their spots on the board, and speaking to them, how many people were really in favor overwhelmingly of this proposal. And I think that is probably one of the reasons I see so few people here today. I expected to be overwhelmed, but it's not. And in the past, I lived in 2 tourist towns before. One was Queenstown in the South Island of New Zealand, and the other one was Surfers Paradise in Australia. And I've seen what can happen when council gives up, you know? Council lets the developers come in and take over. And it's not a pretty sight. And when I go back to those places, which I have many times, I hear from the local residents how upset they were that they didn't stand behind council when they gave them an idea because it didn't have this and it didn't have that. So I'm really behind you guys, and I take my hat off to you.
Thank you. Doug Robb.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity.
You can raise it back up if you like.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak on the Eaglecrest issue. My history is over 50 years in the golf industry, and 7 years of it was with Ledgeview in Abbotsford, where it was part and parcel of the development, the redevelopment, the redesign of it, and building and owning the Langley Golf Center. So a few other projects in the past, I think qualifies me for giving my opinion. Anyway, just short and sweet, one question I do have is Eaglecrest, is it going to be put into perpetuity as Ledgeview was? And I think that this should, for the benefit of for the residents of the area, and of course Qualicum Beach as a whole. The other is, the question that I have is the detailed planning. It doesn't look like there's much of it, and I really commend council and the mayor as well, of course, for what they're doing and giving the opportunity to hold on to this prestigious land. But it seems to me that it really needs some serious planning, and to give it November 1st as a deadline, to me is very, very unreasonable. I look at what's happened in the past, biggest mistakes that have been made in the projects I've been involved in. One is lack of planning, and the other is lack of foresight. And that's all I have to say, and good luck with it, and I hope everything turns out for everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Roberts. And after Judy, Stephen Watson.
Hello. Judy Roberts, I live on Sandwich Close, representing myself. Sandwich Close, for those of you who don't know, is right above the clubhouse. Our whole block is comprised of people who have moved, with the exception of one, since 2017. We were all told that that area behind D is a green space, is protected, and nothing would happen, and because it's a flood zone. And there was a question also proposed in the September meeting of who is okay with the 6-story building going up anywhere. That's all that was said. Many, many people put up their hands. I was shocked. I would just like to know who in Eaglecrest is okay with a 6-story building going up?
No, we don't get to do that kind of.
Oh, okay. I wish that had been proposed, but I understand that there's height restriction of 3 stories, so I don't know why we're talking about 6. And as for the other side, east side, I'm told there's a covenant. I do appreciate that this donation has been made. If the covenant is for a golf course, it can be removed. I'm also a retired paralegal. I've done a little research on this, and it can be removed if the golf course is no longer there. So the park, I understand you've accepted an agreement. I think that was premature. I also think you should have done your due diligence first, because I think you're going to find that you can't build behind Royal Dormont. And you've also got a lot of people riled up unnecessarily, if that's the case. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you. Stephen Watson.
Good evening. My name's Stephen Watson. I'm a commercial landowner on 100 Block West 2nd, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. Since the late 1970s, I've been playing at Qualicum Beach and Eaglecrest golf courses, and over that time, I've seen a lot of change. I've seen the golf course at Qualicum really move in a positive direction, and the Eaglecrest kind of golf course moving in the opposite direction. We're now facing a wonderful opportunity, and a rare opportunity to do something that's pretty cool for the community. With what you've been hearing, a lot of collaboration is required. I recall as a junior golfer the community discussion when the Brown family offered the Qualicum Beach Golf Course to the town council for $1 million. And there was a lot of people for it, a lot of people maybe not so much. But at the end of the day, that $1 million that town council agreed to pay was instrumental, and I think we all like to agree that Qualicum Beach Golf Course helps make Qualicum what it is today. It's a place of gathering. That view from the clubhouse is pretty spectacular, but that was done in time and well thought out by the town of Qualicum Beach. So I look back at the Eaglecrest Golf Course. It was a fun little 9-hole golf course. Until it was really redeveloped and a lot of community support. I can tell you there was far less houses than there was today. And it hosted one of the best tournaments on the island at the time. And I was lucky enough to work in the pro shop for a couple of summers in the late 1980s. The golf course was, of course, redeveloped into 18 holes, and the integration of housing in the golf course is probably the worst I've ever seen. My background education is a master's degree in community and regional planning at UBC. My thesis in the early 1990s was on golf course developments as they were popping up all over the place, including in this area. Some good, some not so good. Eaglecrest was the worst example of how to do it. The houses were far too close from the edge of the fairway to the property line. It was about 10, 15 yards in some areas, and then the houses were about 10 yards in from that. You had people at the tee with the driver on their hand. So I knew a number of golfers would not play Eaglecrest just because it was not, they felt very uncomfortable playing it. I'll give you an example of one homeowner, what they went through in 1995 in 1 year. A ball hit her in the forearm while gardening. A golf ball bounced off her rear driveway and hit her dog. A ball broke her side window. A golf ball damaged her new car parked in the driveway. Remember, this is on the other side of the golf course. And countless golf balls hitting her house, especially on weekends. There's no issue with the golf course design. It's just it's far too close to the housing. The new Eaglecrest owners took over about 20 years ago. I'm not going to go into the history of the current ownership, and it's very sad, unfortunate. You can see in some ways toxic how that's come to where we are today. The great news is that council can take a pretty amazing stance and make a good change for the community. And the golf course can become an important and stable fabric of the community again. And it'll all be owned by the town. The purchase of the golf course lands will mean it will sit. If you don't purchase those lands, it means the golf course lands as they are today will likely sit as they are dilapidated, with the majority of the community not supporting it. No other developer or company have the viable means to do what the town can do. This is a really important point. It's a unique opportunity. What's different and even better than the Golden Beach Memorial purchase is the town can buy these lands and get the money back through selective and thoughtful sale of some of those lands. And of course, the recent major donation is really helping that cause. I've known the mayor since he started politics in Golden Beach, and he knows my golf history. I've been a competitive golfer for 45 years. And so I'm the guy that came up with the 9-hole design. So we could talk with the Eaglecrest membership later, but it is definitely a very viable 9-hole golf course, slight modifications to what exists today. And I just volunteered that to the town. I'm happy to engage with the town and the Eaglecrest membership when the time is right. Today is just about getting those lands. And I've been really impressed with the openness of the town to get to the solution. So I submitted that golf course design, and we'll see where it goes. This is discussion another day. And of course, with the clubhouse and the restaurant, that can be another vitality in an area to have group coffee shops on the deck. So lots of green space, lots of benefit for the community. So I'd like to congratulate Mayor and Council in finding a solution for a troubled area that's been decades on. That will benefit Qualicum Beach more broadly. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. And Mr. Watson still holds the club record. Terry Moberley? Sorry if I just pronounced that wrong.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Conifar, and I live in Eaglecrest. All right. So my name is Terry Conifar, and I live in Eaglecrest. There we go. How's that? I'm here to speak in opposition to changing subject property number 5, designation of recreation to residential in the official community plan. This property is not an abandoned lot that's been just left to grow over. It is a forest. This forest is a crucial ecological habitat and is far more than just a legal parcel. It is a thriving ecosystem and one of the few remaining urban forests in the western sector of Eaglecrest. It also supports a rich variety of birds, including owls and eagles, pollinators such as hummingbirds, bees, and bats, deer, frogs, raccoons, as well as many other native species. Additionally, mature trees and native vegetation that contribute to air quality, climate resilience, and water filtration. Some of these trees are in excess of 6 to 8 feet in circumference and up to 100 feet tall. It's also a critical ecosystem services, including natural water filtration, flood mitigation, and wildlife corridors. I'm very concerned by the potential loss of this irreplaceable natural area. Development on this land would destroy habitat for wildlife, including protected species, eliminate one of the last remaining undeveloped green corridors in the area, and reduce climate resilience by removing mature vegetation and tree cover. I'd like to quote the town's urban forest plan, which states, "Qualicum Beach's urban forest includes every tree in our town, on streets, in parks, public spaces, and backyards. Our urban forest plays important environmental and social roles. It cleans the air, absorbs rainwater, provides bird habitat, and improves our health and well-being. As evidenced by the donation of $2 million towards the acquisition for long-term preservation, and the many people who have voiced their concerns today and over the past months, Qualicum Beach is a community that cares and places a priority on environmental conservation. So thank you for your attention. I respectfully request that the town council protect this forest and designate it for environmental conservation by not changing the OCP designation and rezoning it as F3 recreational. Thank you for your leadership in this area.
Thank you, ma'am. Barry Loudon.
Good afternoon. I'm Barry Loudon. I'm a resident, and I'm speaking for myself. Sorry for not looking at you, I've got my map here.
As long as you face this way, you're good.
Okay, the main concern I have is zone D along 19A. You know, I've walked it a few times. I live right on Dornoch, just a few houses in. And, you know, the corner between Harlequin and Royal Dornoch, if you put a street in there into zone D, it's going to be next to impossible to tie in a light or anything else to the highway. It just doesn't work. And at the very far end, when you put a roundabout in, it defies me on how you're going to put a cut in to zone D from there too, because you've got fairways, and we come out of fairways a lot. And when you go to make a left-hand turn, you've got people coming off the highway, and it's dangerous there. You know, you look to the right, you look to the left, look to the right again, and as you start going, somebody's come off the highway, and they're right there. If you're putting a cut in into zone D there, I don't know how you're going to do that. And the only other alternative is putting a cut in off of Highway 19 into zone D. You know, are you going to put a light there? You've got, what, 80 units apparently, I think they're talking about there. So how you're going to do that is beyond me. Other parts, like, for instance, zone D off of fairways, you know, there's two houses you can build there, but that other land behind it, especially that little piece of land that's coming off Royal Dornoch, that little sliver, I mean, it's useless. Between Muirfield and Troon, you know, if people want to buy that land off both ends, okay, that's great if they can afford it. You could maybe put one house onto Royal Dornoch at the very top there. And also the zoning between Zone C going down Country Club and D along 19A. You know, if there was single family, you know, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's the best of a bad world. But multi-family, you know, it just doesn't blend right. And I'm sure somebody's talked about this before. At the very end of Zone D by Royal Dornoch and Harlequin, there was flooding there, and they had to put some sort of a flood diverter in there, and I'm not sure what you're going to do when you build on that land. It's going to be interesting. But anyway, so yeah, that's about all I've got to say. Oh, and one other thing, the 2.1 million, did that come in before or after the land rezone? Because the way I look at it, if 2.1 million was offered, you know, from a really generous donation, you would think that on Zone D and C, that would easily be a single-family zoning there. You know, you don't need multifamily, you know, from what I see. You know, if it's 25% of the cost taken out with that donation. Anyway, but that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Loudon. Kieran. So it's the last name of Kieran? I can't read the initial, but there's a Kieran.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Stephen Cook. I've been a resident of Qualico Beach for the last 6 years. I have the privilege to live on 6 acres on the east side, just up from Village Way and 19A. Also was a former member of the Eaglecrest Golf Club. Unfortunately, I've seen the demise of that club over the last number of years. Was a member for a couple of years, now repositioned to Pheasant, like a lot of other members. What a great idea. We can save the golf course, we can secure 105 acres, secure 40 acres of parkland. I think it's a wonderful idea, and you're to be commended, you know, for presenting the opportunity. However, I think you've done a bit of disservice to the public with how quickly this has gone, and really thinking through, you know, I think about, you know, the NDP and EB and what we are forced to deal with here in Qualicum with the housing requirements that you're faced with. And it appears that you're putting all of it into this development. I don't think that's well thought out. And I think we've done a disservice in how this information has been presented. Why are we not looking at modeling, you know, based on the various zoning classes? You know, why are we not looking at, you know, the R1 zoning? Well, you know, with the war that we've got on single-family homes, they can put 4 structures on each one of these lots. Does this not cover the problem? Where is the thought about preserving Eaglecrest and this suburban community? I don't think it's been well thought out. And I understand you're under time constraints, and I get that. But I think you've done a disservice by not presenting these numbers. What does the Memorial Golf Course contribute to the town? I would hope I'd get that, you know, from looking at the town documents. I can't see that. Just like I can't see the municipal airport, what it contributes to this town. But it would be nice for someone to figure that out and to present it. And why was this plan not presented by costing out what does R1 do for all of these lands that could potentially be developed, and in fashion with the rest of the community? I really feel that we're taking all of these demands from the NDP and shoving it into this area. And I see it as a great opportunity for you to do that. But I think with the 2.1 we've been graciously offered as a donation, I think we need to go back and rethink. And I realize that, you know, this whole thing has been presented in a very, oh yeah, kind of maybe, you know, sort of should have, you know, could be this, could be that. But I don't understand why it wasn't modeled on the various zonings. You know, how many exact units? What's this going to present? What is the tax dollars coming back to the community? I don't get it. It could be more concise, and it could be done better. I realize you're rushed, but I'm in support of saving this golf course. I'm in support of securing these lands. I'm not in support, as you've probably felt, as soon as you've put the OCP together and done all these bylaw changes and put the density requirements in. They don't match. That's what I got to say.
Thank you. Next is Terry Koenigshaber. Art Deals.
Can you hear me? I fully expect to probably exceed the 5 minutes, so I'll go as far as I can, and then I'll come back for a second round. Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilors. I'm Susan Lloyd from Eaglecrest. I am the director of the Eaglecrest Residents Association, but these are my personal comments and are in addition to the comments in my letter of September 17th, 2025. There are positives in the town's proposed purchase of the privately owned Eaglecrest Golf Course lands. This is an opportunity to preserve green space, continue the golf course with someone who wants to run and promote a successful golf course, and to provide new housing. Many of us in Eaglecrest are willing to embrace a change and welcome more diverse housing options, and that is significant for an established suburban area like Eaglecrest. There are also negatives that, in my view, cannot be ignored. And unless there are changes made to the town's proposed land use map and bylaws, I cannot give my unequivocal support. I appreciate that the town updated its FAQs on the website late last week, but the town could and should have provided more information to the public throughout this process. and that has left some unaware of the magnitude of what is being proposed. It would not have affected the integrity of the purchase agreement or the negotiations for the town to provide. For example, the town's rationale for choosing to situate the land uses where it did in the land use plan and the density in the bylaws. Instead of it being a proposed plan, it now appears that it may be a fixed plan with little room for change in consultation with the public. The town could also have provided the golf course redesign that it has had for months. Also, projections for the number of new housing units that could be built, which you must have, to inform the public about the magnitude of potential development. And more information on the phasing of development, and in particular, to identify which lots are likely to be sold first, which the town has now revealed in the FAQs as being the rural Dornick lots, strongly opposed by those who want to preserve green space on the west side of Eaglecrest, and amid information that these areas may be part of an emergency flood spillway. While the timeline for this purchase has been rushed in some respects, there was ample time for the town to provide a plan showing what Eaglecrest will look like if it is developed to the full extent of the proposed bylaws. A visual that people could see to give meaning to the bylaw provisions. The lack of information affects the integrity of the town's process and the validity of some of the public responses as people are forming opinions without being informed. I suspect that there may have been less enthusiastic responses at the town's open houses on September 9th, and in the survey if the public had more details. Unfortunately, the town's plan has been divisive, east versus west, as many see it as not being balanced. Rather than integrating Eaglecrest, it effectively divides it into sections with no plan for meaningful connections at this point. It concentrates density into one area where there is little green space for public access, the Country Club Drive corridor, with developments on all of the fairways in this area and on existing green space and forested areas. In an area where there are already many unsold lots from developments approved in recent years. The potential level of density is unprecedented. Multiple four-story buildings on the town's parcel along Highway 19A and on the new parcel to be created midway on Country Club Drive. With density bonusing that could add 50% more units than under R1 zoning. And then multiple five-story buildings on the new parcel to be created at the top of Country Club Drive. I do not think there are many in Qualicum Beach who would be excited about that prospect near their homes. We just went through an OCP planning process focused on housing with extensive public engagement. Here are some of the things that people wanted based on the town's summary reports. Qualicum Beach's small town charm to be preserved, controlled growth and development, and diverse and affordable housing types, including small lot patio homes. Okay, I'll continue later.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Webb. And next is Maggie Evans, and I've had a request not to tap the podium because it gives feedback to the people recording.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here, how's that? A little more?
Yeah.
There, how's that? Great. My name is Maggie Evans. I'm an Eaglecrest resident, and I'm speaking on my own behalf today. I'd like to thank you, Mayor Westbrook, and the council members for convening this special meeting. I appreciate your efforts very much in trying to find a solution to a really difficult problem that wasn't your creation. It's been thrust on our community by the current owner of Eaglecrest Golf Course, who, yeah, I think lots of us have opinions about that person. Anyway, I would like, however, to express my concerns about a couple of issues before us right now. I'm very strongly opposed to the entire C parcel at Country Club Drive being zoned R20. multifamily residential. One potential solution would be that you could allow the very top section that fronts the highway to, as an independent care home or independent living type facility, as has been suggested. But the designation of the entire C section being multifamily simply does not fit within our community. I think multifamily developments in that area mean you use all our green space, because what you guys might think is green space is a private golf course that none of us are allowed on, except when it's dark and we run over there with our dogs. So it means we lose all our green space in the western part of Eaglecrest. It means high traffic density and lots of concrete. I think it's important that all decisions that you make with zoning in that area should fit within what already exists, single-family homes. I would fully support them as they blend well into our community and helps you to achieve the result we're all looking for here. I'm very strongly opposed to any commercial development happening in our neighborhood. A convenience store is the absolute last thing that I think most of us want to see in Eaglecrest. It's completely out of step with our neighborhood. It dramatically will increase traffic, noise, and garbage. It'll have a big impact on our property values on the western side. We already have traffic screaming down Country Club, as it's the only straight road with no stop signs. And people use it as their personal race course constantly. We also have plenty of shopping options within a very short distance that are all accessible by public transport. And we all moved to our community fully aware that we would have to leave our community to get a gallon of milk. Lastly, I'd like you to consider, as many have stated before me, more equitable design solutions than what we're currently seeing. It feels very punitive to the West Side residents. They're a very easy and a very obvious solution based on existing infrastructure. I get why you guys immediately went there. That's where I immediately went too. But I think if you step back and give some further thought and some further creative design solutions, taking into account so much of what you're hearing today about not everyone, many people would like to see golf down further end. I see a huge chunk of green space there that could be single-family home. One thing that it's already been mentioned, but a designated public walking and park space built close to within the west side. Perhaps it's on the edges of the golf course or within a corner of the golf course, somewhere that we have a park. Because right now we see all those other parks on the other side. It's like, hey. I grew up in Oceanside, and 5 years ago I was able to fulfill my lifelong dream of moving to Pelican Beach and becoming a homeowner here. We're all very blessed to live in such a beautiful little community, and I ask that moving forward, we work to achieve the charm, the peacefulness, and livability of our town. For me, a part of that charm means no corner stores in Eaglecrest. As we look at the runaway development that's occurred in neighboring communities, with all due respect, let's not become Parksville, which the current development proposal feels like to me. I do believe
Your time is up there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Annette Hester.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Councilors, thank you very much for the opportunity. At this stage, we've heard from so many people, and I echo a lot of the comments. I'm a resident of Qualicum, Qualicum Beach.
Thank you.
Of Qualicum Beach, Rye Road, just built a house 3 years ago, so a new resident. But I've had the fortune in my life to work for provincial governments, federal government, development banks, private enterprises, at the highest level, advising the highest level of governance. And I've been involved in many, many projects. So when I heard about it, I thought, well, we're going to have public consultation. I'm going to be able to have information. I didn't worry so much. It was the middle of the summer. I didn't worry as much, and I trusted that I would have access to really solid information. I'm an economist by trade. I do risk analysis and political risk, economic risk, etc. I then got confronted with trying to absorb an enormously complex enterprise. You are trying to be a regulator and a developer, which I was amazed that wasn't mentioned as a risk, because it's both an opportunity and also has a risk, as was pointed out by others. You are re-flourishing, doing a whole area of neglected golf course, greens that are now going to be reforested. I have a whole redesign and a development. So there's 3 different projects. I don't see publications of capital expenses, combined capital expenses, future, a budget plan for 3 to 5 years at least, variable costs, capital expense costs. You mentioned in the last council meeting that we are really looking at 12 million, 11.5 to 12, but that was off the top estimate. I did not hear several of other potential costs, but the numbers run that I understand were run on recovery of 8.5. So I would ask you why the November 1st deadline seems incredibly onerous for a resident to acquire information, and by hearing everybody else, I'm not alone in thinking this is a lot of consideration in such a short period, and it's so impactful. So I beg you to think, what if we ask for an extension on this deadline, because it's really divisive. And also I would ask you to publish all of the risk assessment so that we know what assumptions were made on the best case scenario, the steady state scenario, and in the worst case scenario. To imagine that Vancouver Island is going to be immune to what is happening in Canada and the world, and the shift that we are seeing economically is wishful thinking. I hope that's true. But to think that we might not have an impact in our finances, that stocks might not fall, that any of that we are immune, is just really wishful thinking. It's not careful consideration. So I really urge you to consider asking for the seller for a postponement and publish the projections, the full costs, and the full risks, including the environmental risk assessment, the full report from the consultant. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next is Lance Nader. And after that, on deck is Linda Koolewijn.
My name is Lance Nader. My wife and I live on Royal Drive, and we've lived in Eaglecrest for 24 years. I disagree with the previous speaker suggesting that the town should request a delay from the November 1st negotiated date. I can appreciate people's concerns with change, but we did an experiment, unbeknownst to us. When I moved here 24 years ago, the golf course was operated by an engineering union. They operated the golf course as an investment. They then turned and sold the golf course to the Kims. The intent at the time of the sale was to go to develop the whole place. The Kims were smart enough to see the public reaction to that idea and decided to close it as a golf course. And I have to say they did a pretty good job of doing it. Then they decided to cash in and sell to another party in the private sector. And what they've done to the golf course over the course of the last 5 years has been an embarrassment. The clubhouse is closed. It was the hub of community gatherings, AGMs, election previews, and it sits there vacant. The golf course was 18 holes, it was cut back to 9, and now we're saying we're going to take the land that was covered by covenant to be a golf course or a recreational property, and we're going to turn it into parkland. We need to get on with this project. I was pleasantly surprised when it was announced that an agreement was reached between the town and the owner to sell the golf course for $8.5 million. This is a unique opportunity for Eaglecrest, and it's essential that the town has control over what gets built and where it gets built. And I can only say that the voters who put you as mayor and councilors have voted to you with a sense of trust and an obligation that we think you can represent us properly. I want to point out one last thing, and that is the election is coming up roughly this time next year. I think an awful lot of the blanks that are on the screen behind you need to be filled in prior to the election, so that when voters vote, they'll know that they're voting for somebody who either supports what is being put forward or doesn't. But don't put us in a situation where we have agreed to a settlement of $8.5 million, the generous donation of $2 million and then say, oh, well, that was the previous council. We have a new idea. Don't play that game on this issue. That's my message. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nader. Next is Linda Coolwine.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Linda Coolwine. I live on the corner of the Island Highway and Village Way. I've lived there for 45 years. I've lived there before Chartwell was really developed and the evergreens. The difference in noise from the development is huge. And putting apartment buildings going down, I guess it's the main drive going down to the beach, and across from me is going to increase the noise substantially. As for a roundabout, they've been talking about it for years. If they do building in the roundabout, it's not there, I won't get on my driveway, because it's already hard. About 2 weeks ago, there was a really bad accident on the corner. They used the green across from me, which is the D on the bottom there, to land a helicopter to transport a person to the hospital. I'm concerned about the multi-apartment buildings, condos, or whatever that I build. I don't think it should be anything but single housing. Has anybody thought about all the children that walk that area to go to school? There's a lot of children that go by there. You're going to be increasing the traffic along there. And you've got children from kindergarten to grade 7 that are walking along there as well. And I do agree with the people that have bought along there and thought that they were going to be living next to a golf course for the entire time they own their home, and now they might have an apartment building put in their backyard. I can't imagine what that feels like to them, and I really hope that the council thinks about what that would feel like if they were a person that lived there, an apartment building was put behind them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Keith Braun.
Good afternoon, almost good evening. And thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. Oh, can you hear me now? Okay, there we go. All right. So just to be clear, I am in support of public ownership of the golf course. I think it's a brilliant idea, and kudos to you guys for pursuing this opportunity. But there's a but. I'm not in agreement or support of the bylaws as written or the amendments to the OCP. By the way, I am Keith Braun. I live in Eaglecrest, and I speak on behalf of myself and my wife. Well, if my wife opposes to anything I say, I'm sure I'm going to hear about it tonight. So. Anyways, so the proposal to increase residential density of these lands poses immediate and measurable risks to the established property values of surrounding homes and the community and the character of Eaglecrest. So to bring some credibility to my opinion, I've been a realtor for over 27 years, and I've witnessed the deleterious effects of densification efforts in communities similar to Eaglecrest, particularly with the addition of multi-story apartment-style structures and commercial buildings. While the proposal to purchase the Eaglecrest golf course lands and convert part of it into public parkland, retaining Niagara Golf Course and developing housing, has some appeal, there are some serious and underappreciated risks, particularly to property values of existing homes in the surrounding community. I'm worried about property values and how it's going to affect the local landowners in the area. When rural or low-density suburban areas are allowed to densify via subdivision, rezoning, multi-unit developments, commercial buildings, and more compact housing developments, the influx of more homes on what have been more spacious lots and green spaces leads to decreased property values, increased rental units, increased crime, increased traffic along with noise, and substantial decrease in gentrification. For many property owners, part of the appeal, or hence value, of properties in Eaglecrest is the larger lots, the quiet surroundings, the beautiful landscaping, the open green spaces, the golf course, and less congestion due to lack of commercial amenities. So densification undermines all those qualities, which could reduce future buyers' willingness to pay current day prices. So, I'm particularly concerned for the property owners located on Country Club Drive and also Cottage Drive. If the proposed amendments are passed, large multi-story buildings erected across from these homes will devalue their homes greatly. I estimate approximately 10 to 30% of property value, depending upon the type of building that's erected across the street. The average sale price of homes in Eaglecrest right now, in the past year, is $1,073,000. So this means that conservatively, the owners of those homes will have to endure a reduction of value on their properties by $100,000 to $300,000 each. This does not include the ripple effect of decreased property values realized by adjacent properties throughout the development. This is entirely unacceptable, unreasonable for a task of anybody. Most property owners rely on the values of their homes to secure their retirement. This effect would significantly compromise owners in this area. Densification can also slow growth or even stagnation in home price appreciation in Eaglecrest compared to neighboring less densified areas. Increased difficulty in selling homes to those who value low density, quiet views, and reducing demand on and thus price. And also the erosion of community prestige, which often underlies high property values in places like Balkan Beach and Eaglecrest. So some suggestions. To protect the property values and still achieve community goals, consider some of these things, or maybe all of them. Limiting the developed portion to only small number of houses, and only low density housing matching that which is around them. Ensuring buffer zones, preserving existing forest and golf course area between new housing and current properties for views, privacy and light. Restricting height and lot coverage and setbacks. Phasing any new housing so infrastructure catches up.
Mr. Brown, your time is up.
Oh, darn it, sorry.
It's okay. Thank you. It's almost 5 o'clock, which means we have to make a motion to go beyond 3 hours, or we could take a short break. People like that?
So
okay.
moved.
Okay, Jim. We'll have a 10-minute recess. Thank you. And the first thing the council has to do is to pass a motion to go on beyond 3 hours. Councilor Harrison, Councilor Skipsey, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And I may have skipped a name. Councilor Skipsey just skipped a name. Terry Mobley. Is Terry Mobley still here? All right, we'll carry on with the list. Next is Charna McAfee. Closer to the mic.
Okay, now it's good? Okay, there's three concerns I want to try and get to, make comment on, are the three of them: financial, environmental, and zoning.
Clock's
Oh, the clock's not.
on. Can you get the light on? Thank you. We're back.
Okay. And all these three, financial, environmental, and zoning, they all seem to be interconnected and they overlap. And there's been a lot of discussion today about the financial aspect, and I find that a very complicated problem. But so I was thinking about it, and all the undeveloped land, except for a portion of the golf course and the coveted recreation and golf course land on the west side. All of the land that's been rezoned in this proposal is zoned for development, and more than half of it is for maximum density. And I don't know what the financial incentive is for the town to zone at maximum density. The total land area noted in the zoning amendments, I calculate to be about 7 hectares. That's the total zoned land. And so I don't know if all the 7 hectares need to be developed to cover all of the town's costs related to the purchase and the development of Eaglecrest. The only cost we know at this time is $8.5 million for the purchase, and if for argument's sake, say that after all additional various costs are added up, then the total cost could be double to triple the purchase price. Let's say that's a generous estimate. Then how many hectares would need to be sold? Perhaps Lotus could tell us if selling 3 hectares would cover all the total costs, leaving 4 hectares in public hands and undeveloped. So that's sort of my general understanding of how, this financial aspect of the zoning goes. And that could be, I could be totally incorrect, but it would be nice to know more details about that. It's difficult to say how long it would take to sell individual family lots versus medium density parcels versus high density parcels. And I think the revenue from these 3 different land use categories are comparable and aren't significantly different, which contradicts what the consultants and experts estimate of these land values. So I don't know how to interpret that. And then the other part to this is the zoning. And a portion of the land should be zoned and set aside for lower cost housing and for local workforce. And this is, I think, should be part of the calculation when we take into account the, how much the town is going to make off the land sales. I think we should put some aside for housing, for affordable housing, or low-income housing. That hasn't been discussed at all in this plan, and I think that's lacking. And I have the same question as an earlier speaker, which is can the zoning be reversed? If we put the zoning into the OCP now, are we stuck with that? Are we going to be able to downzone if we realize that we've made enough money selling the land and we have all this, and we don't need to sell all the land, then we can't reverse the zoning. So I would hope that we, instead of high density zoning for all this land, and instead of zoning all the land, why don't we reduce the density amendments and not zone every parcel of land? So that is a concern, and I don't know how that's going to work, if we can still do that. But I think once it's in the OCP as it is now, I think it's going to be hard to change. And I think someone else made reference to that as well, depending on what council we have next time, The other part of this about the high density, about the zoning for high density, this is maximum density, 80 units per hectare, that's maximum. And one of the, parts of this that I don't understand is that when you zone for high density like that, and you build tall buildings, compact space, try and, use the land efficiently, build tall buildings, I'm almost done. Build tall buildings and use less space. Well, where's all the green space then? For right now, it's not zoned for green space.
Thank you. Next is Linda Tossin.
I had understood that in general terms, there is support from property owners in Eaglecrest for this acquisition, as so many will either retain the golf course that their homes are on or gain town-maintained parkland, even though many seem to prefer it to remain a golf course. They'd rather it than parkland. However, for those of us on Country Club Drive, Fairways Drive, and the corner of Country Club and Eaglecrest Drives, and for us who live along and below the current 5th fairway, if the rezonings go ahead as they are intended for the revisioning, we are faced with a level of disproportionate density that is untenable, to say the very least. I realize that should the purchase go ahead, we will have to accept some change. However, rezoning from parks and recreational to institutional, commercial, and multifamily, which will allow from 3 to 5, I've heard 6-story buildings in this westernmost part of Eaglecrest, is simply being taken much too far. When changing the zoning from parks and recreation to R1 would already be a significant change that would increase density substantially and provide needed funding. When the Cottage Drive subdivision, when the Cottage Drive subdivision was allowed to go ahead, it was said then that the golf course would remain as such in perpetuity. Yet those of us whose homes have been built here to capture ocean and/or golf course views are now faced with the possible development of multi-story buildings replacing these views. How do we support and cheer on these changes to Eaglecrest and to Pelican Beach with enthusiasm when the magnitude of the changes we may face have not been openly shared enough so that we can fully understand them? And it's leaving us, so many of us, with so much uncertainty, grave concerns, and the fear of the unknown. There must be a way to soften this blow to the form and character of our residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Wendy Johnson. Wendy Johnson still here? No. Adam Walker. He's still here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for making this forum open, and I want to join with Jim Bennett in thanking staff for going above and beyond to meet these very difficult timelines. It's nice seeing you all again. My name is Adam Walker. I live at 89 Hilliers Road North, just right over there. I've gone through the package and watched the meeting, and I got a lot that I want to say, but in 5 minutes I'll try to keep it short, and I want to focus on density. I've lived in this community my whole life. I've got deep roots here, and I know each and every one of you are deeply connected to this community. This is the best small town in the whole country to call home. And it's not an accident. It's because we have strong long-term planning, and we work together as a community to build a community. And when you go through the official community plan, it has provisions for multifamily outside of downtown. It's not common in Qualicum, but it has provisions for it. And so, and yes, and so the downtown in the OCP, it talks about that if we are going to put multifamily in Qualicum Beach outside of the village neighborhood, we should limit that to 30 units per hectare. And it's kind of a shock to me to see that council is pushing this idea of 80 units per hectare. And you know, what does that actually mean? If you take the lot C's up there, and then lot D on the bottom along the highway, it's 5.8 hectares. We're talking about 465 units of housing. But that doesn't include long-term care. There's no limit to the amount of long-term care housing that is to be on this property. If you go back through the building reports for the town of Qualicum Beach, for the last 16 years, we're talking about 425 units in a whole generation of multifamily housing, and yet this council is hoping to, in a very short 3-week window, rezone a large swath of land to allow for 465 multifamily units. And what does that look like? You know, when you drive into Parksville and you see Buckerfield, you come in on the right-hand side, you see 2 new apartment buildings. Behind that, there's 3 apartment buildings, and there's a grocery store and another apartment building and townhomes. That's about 450 units. In fact, it's slightly less than what council is proposing for this. And I've heard council and I've heard members of the public say, well, that's the ceiling. You know, I got 8-foot ceilings in my house, I'm not 8 feet tall. And the challenge I have with accepting that council will do less is twofold. One, I watched a member of council who is the champion of housing in this community try to convince the other members of council that we should not build more than 4 stories in Eaglecrest. And I watched another member of council who ran on protecting the OCP, saying maybe we should do 5 stories, and is 50 feet high enough. That's a challenge, to accept that we're not going to see the density that we're talking about on these lots. The other thing is, once you've zoned these lots and you go to a developer and say, We've done the hard work. We've got the zoning in place. We can build 465 units plus unlimited long-term care. That's the value of this land. But we'd love you to pay that value, but could you build a lot less? I don't think that's going to happen. And so I would strongly encourage that council consider the history of this community, what we have done to build this place in what we have. This isn't the city of Parksville. This plan is not Qualicum. This is not a vision for Qualicum. This is what we would see in the city of Parksville. So I would strongly encourage council to not have apartment buildings popping up all over our community like the neighbors next door, but to change this direction, to reduce the density to 30 units per hectare, as per the OCP, no density bonuses, and get rid of the unlimited long-term care units, or have the second half of Block C have unlimited long-term care, but get rid of the 134 units of housing. It's going to be very difficult for this council or the next council to be moving forward in conjunction with the developer to try to get the community on board when we're talking about 5-story buildings in a community that is predominantly single-family homes. We need the density, we need the long-term care units, but if we don't do that work together, we're going to lose a lot of people along the way. And there's a tremendous opportunity here for a win. I want to commend council for doing the hard work of trying to protect the greens, of trying to find a way to offset the infrastructure costs, but I really urge council to look at that 30 units per hectare density limit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Karen Turner. This is your second time, right? I'm going to ask people who haven't spoken yet first.
Absolutely, yes.
Sally Bernard? Okay. Is Salim Bernard still here? Okay, there you are.
Hello. Thank you, Council, and good. Thank you, Council and Mayor, for this opportunity. My name is Salim Bernard. I live in Qualicum Beach, Seaside. Although I don't live in Eaglecrest, growing up I spent a lot of time there with my friends and my best friends, so a lot of good memories of golf balls coming through the trees and regathering them and sending them back to the golfers. So thank you for everyone in my bogey who were terrible golfers, and thanks for the opportunity. So in Eaglecrest, there's a little bit of issue in terms of the health and environment there. My friend's mother actually had a neurological disorder at a younger age. I'm not sure if it's because of it, but there is evidence of a link between the proximity of golf courses and the increase of Parkinson's disease. I'm not sure if you're aware, in the Journal of the American Medical Association, dated March 8th, entitled Proximity to Golf Courses and Risk of Parkinson's Disease, up to 126% increase of Parkinson's with the residents who live within 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers of a golf course. So that being said, what are the plans in terms of the health and long-term studies that can be done in terms of the impact, the long-term impact, and the environmental impact? What is the legal impact? So I know Eaglecrest started in 1971, so is council and the town going to assume the risks of all the environmental and legal implications that may arise from the potential pesticides that have gone into the groundwater and have affected potentially the residents of Eaglecrest? Also the value. I know we've seen the values of what it could be, but if there is contamination and there's an environmental issue, what does the value of the lots and the current value of the land look like? So yeah, it's kind of happened real quick. I think I've spent less time doing due diligence on my condo down by the water than the council has time to look at the environmental impact. And I see in the FAQ there is one line that says environmental impact TBD. And that's not a lot of information given to us, so ask for more time in terms of doing the long-term and short-term environmental and health impact of the residents of Eaglecrest. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And next is Carrie Knudsen.
Carey, and I'm a resident of Welcome Beach. Although I am mostly in support of the purchase of the golf course, I do share many of the concerns that have been expressed here today. I am opposed to the speed in which it is being done and some of the rezoning amendments that are being proposed. To rezone any part of Eaglecrest to high-density commercial and institutional use is not appropriate and does not remotely fit in with the surrounding area, let alone at what has been called the gateway to our beautiful Welcome Beach. I feel like you are trying to calm the waters by indicating in the FAQs that this higher zoning does not mean that it's still going to be single-family homes. But as Mr. Hullen stated, the higher the density, the more money you get. So why would any developer pay you the value for higher density zoned land and then put in single-family homes? The short answer is, they're not going to. You might say that you have final decision about what is ultimately built on this land, but as the seller of the property, you then put yourself in a huge conflict of interest in doing so. I know you are typically a pretty conservative council when it comes to heights of buildings and density, but let's not forget that future council decision-making may not be made by you. There is an election next year, and the ones sitting at the table making those decisions may not be you. No one can know what a future council may decide. I feel like it has been clearly expressed here today that there is support for this purchase, but just as clearly, there has been extreme concern and lack of support for the high-density zoning. I encourage you to take that to heart, listen to the neighbors, and reconsider this zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Red Williams. Is Red Williams still here? Okay. Then Lana W. There you are.
Hello. My name is Lana Wittenberg, and I speak on behalf of myself and my husband. We are residents of Eaglecrest and live directly across from the proposed sea development. We are absolutely opposed to this development for obvious reasons, and the sense of urgency quite honestly scares me. We built our beautiful home in 2021. We built in Eaglecrest for many reasons, and having a 4-story commercial building in our front yard was not one of them. This development is unrealistic and does not suit our community or the residents within it. We strongly oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Sterner.
Hi, thank you. I speak for Rob Rankin, who could not be here today, situated on Sandwich Close. The development of multiple multi-story buildings on Country Club Drive, I have opposed. When Eaglecrest was first developed, it was a golf course, single-family dwelling neighborhood, and has been that for over 50 years. Adding multi-unit structures of 4 to 6 stories dramatically changes that, especially for those who live on or close to Country Club Drive. Rezoning to commercial use at the corner of Country Club and Eaglecrest, I am opposed. There has been much discussion about the concerns of added traffic to the neighborhood. This will only add to that. Competition with the clubhouse and parking. Areas 5 and 6, or have you designated up there D, 2 strips of D. These areas are part of the flood spillway and thus were never built on when Eaglecrest was developed. They are home to mature trees and are used by a wide variety of wildlife. Removal of these would remove all natural, mature forest from this side of Eaglecrest. I lived in Eaglecrest. The purchase of the golf course seemed like a great idea when first considered, but now I find myself living on the side of Eaglecrest that is to get multi-story, multi-unit residences out of traffic, a possible commercial development, and the loss of forested green space, while my neighbors on the other side of Eaglecrest gain 40 acres of park with no residential or commercial development. Not happy. And if I could finish on finishing up my presentation, when I spoke with members of council in the last few weeks, it was mentioned that they were short about $2 million. And we're scrambling to find that. And that was one of the reasons that those 2 narrow strips of Area D were being sold. Now that you have potential of $2 million, I would challenge you to take part of that money and make up what you would have got from selling that. I am dismayed to read in some comments on the paper that now you're thinking you might have a surplus from property sales, and now you could find some other amenities to build. That surplus should be used to keep the precious green space that we have. Those 2 strips of green represent the only walking space on the west side of Eaglecrest, as we normally do not walk on the fairways. The upper strip in particular, which is bare, is the community meeting ground for walkers, doggers, and golf carts, and thus is a hub of community. The forest I have spoken of, and other people have as well. It is our only pocket forest on this side. In conclusion, I wish to say, the future of the natural setting of Eaglecrest should not be a bargaining chip on the table. There is no gain by ruining one part of Eaglecrest to save another. Each piece of green space sold for development costs us a portion of the charm, the beauty, and the connection to nature that we purchased when we bought our homes here. Thank you.
Thank you. So that is the end of the list as I have it. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, I'll go with Susan Lloyd first, and then Jim, and then you haven't spoken at all.
I put my name on the list, I believe I was number 4. You might have read it. My writing's on.
Well, I'll call you next.
Sure.
I'm Susan Lloyd from Eaglecrest, and I'll continue. When I was last up here, I was going through some of the elements and some of the results of the public engagement and the OCP planning process that we've undertaken recently. And I started to read out a little bit of a list of some of the things that people said they wanted. The first one was to preserve Pelican Beach's small town charm. Also housing for young families, working people, and seniors wishing to downsize. The preservation of existing green spaces, including Eaglecrest Golf Course. Safe walking and cycling infrastructure, buildings up to 3 stories in height, and new housing that fits in with the existing neighborhood, preserves green space, and has high-quality design and traditional human-scale buildings. Pocket parks, squares, play spaces, and natural areas. And new housing in the village neighborhood, especially in the East Village, and sensitive development in existing neighborhoods. I find it hard to reconcile this recent feedback, along with long-standing principles in the town's OCP, with what I am seeing in the town's proposed Eaglecrest bylaws. So this is what I support. I support changing the current recreational use designations to residential and the zoning to R1, along with reducing the minimum parcel size to 500 square meters, which is substantially smaller than most existing lots in Eaglecrest and will result in more compact development. This level of density in Eaglecrest is substantially higher than what exists now. I also support allowing institutional use at the top of Country Club Drive for a seniors care facility in one 5-story building, with lower scale, more diverse housing options also on that parcel, but no other institutional use. And I also support permanent protection for all green space, including the golf course, and trails and/or safe pathways, including a perimeter walking loop and connections at the top of Country Club Drive on level ground, integrating the new housing areas on both sides of Country Club Drive. I do not support the town's process and the proposed bylaws that seek to authorize broad uses and potential density that is not necessary at this time. There are no limits on the maximum number of units or caravans or the maximum number of 4- or 5-story buildings on the parcel at the top of Country Club Drive, the parcel midway down Country Club, and the town-owned parcel along Highway 19A. I do not believe that most people in the town of Qualicum Beach would support this if they were aware of the potential magnitude and the number of tall buildings that could result. I don't support new housing on the town-owned rural Dornick lots. We've heard lots today about the issues that people have with that. I can't see much more than a limited development potential, perhaps on the road frontages, and the town should not even consider development until it can confirm that they are not an emergency flood spillway. Even with all this, if the town is determined to sell them for housing, a public access right-of-way area should be preserved. I don't support commercial use at the corner of Eaglecrest Drive and Country Club Drive. Instead of adding a standalone convenience store and cafe adjacent to the golf club operation should provide services that would benefit the community at large, not just golfers. And I think a coffee bar where people can stop and have a chat would be welcomed. Perhaps have a small cafe or coffee bar as part of a seniors facility at the top of Country Club Drive that would welcome neighbors and where facility residents and neighbors could mingle. And I do not support the continuation of a pattern of development that we have already seen in the Country Club Drive area, where the town has not secured any new public access green space, has taken cash in lieu of park and a community amenity contribution to use elsewhere, nor multiple private strata developments that relieve the town of road maintenance costs but exclude public access. We do not need more no trespassing signs on this side of Eaglecrest. If it is not a financially viable project with the level of density I have suggested, without multiple 4- and 5-story buildings, then I think the town should have made that material fact clear to the public. If it is viable, then what is the rush to put zoning in place for higher buildings now? The town has said the larger parcels will require analysis and public consultation before they are sold. Let us take more time with those parcels and do it right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have copies of this that I'd like to...
Yeah, just leave it, Ms. Swenson.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, if you don't mind, the gentleman in the back hasn't spoken yet. Come on up, sir.
No notes. This is rather impromptu for me, so Mayor Council and staff appreciate you listening to me now. My wife and I are...
Would you state your name, please?
Rod Wilburn. I live in the Eaglecrest area. My wife and I moved here 3 years ago. We came to the island as restarts. My wife came from the interior, I came from Vancouver. I worked downtown Vancouver for most of my career since 1979 in the real estate development business, working for as a senior executive of Concert Properties, one of the largest and most reputable real estate development companies in Canada. I was involved on a daily basis as a senior manager doing condominium developments, commercial development in Vancouver, primarily initially Toronto, Victoria. So I've been involved from the very land acquisition to the end of over 75 condominium developments, most of which were between 4 stories and 60 stories in downtown Toronto. I'm not going to try, I haven't been engrossed in what's happened in Qualicum Beach as much as most people have. I can tell you that Liza and I started out in Chemainus. We thought it was a nice small town, great place to live. And then we moved to Brentwood Bay, and we moved to North Saanich, which is a beautiful area. But we came to Qualicum Beach because I've been seeking out a town in British Columbia where it was idyllic and it was beautiful. And Qualicum Beach is the best town, frankly, that I've ever seen. I've been across Canada many times. Because whoever did it was smart enough not to build a town on the highway. So as you know, with the traffic circle, it created a separate town up there. But it also, to me, it has the fabulous opportunity to have a walkable community where people can gather, there's coffee shops, and people live in places like the village. Is it the village, the seniors place? Where I walk by that, and there's a high school. The kids are out playing soccer, and the elderly people are there able to look over it. I mean, this is unbelievable from an urban context. I hope if I live that long that I can live in the villages. Anyway, other than that, I would just say that, and then I must say, I look at the development along Fern, the new part of town where we have the East Village and the pub. And then there's all the commercial around there. As someone who was involved in False Creek and other developments in Vancouver, Collingwood Village in East Vancouver by the SkyTrain, there was a whole lot of reasons for density. The SkyTrain went by, there was connectivity, there was walkability, waterfront. The town has incredible potential right downtown to do this density. And here we are shifting it over here. So I go out on my bicycle and I have to ride try and cross the highway and go to downtown. And you know, sometimes I have to wait 20 minutes to get across Highway 19A on my bicycle. So I can imagine trying to do that on a walker. But anyway, that's my opinion on the density there. I don't think it's appropriate either. But having said that, from a real estate point of view, I looked at Site C, and I sort of had to use Google Earth to figure out the size, 75,000 square feet, you know, 0.7 hectares, 2.5 acres or whatever it is, and I look at the limitations of the units you can put on there, and I figure maybe 56 units, but you have a 60% site coverage, which means you could essentially build 56 2,500 square foot condominiums on that site. Well, that's doable, except those are certainly not going to be affordable housing. But secondly, I started thinking, what about parking? Where's the parking for these? So from a developer, having looked at sites in dense downtown, it's going down. Toronto, our buildings were 6 stories underground before they went up. And then I looked at the numbers, and I went, that land has probably close to zero value to a developer to build a 4-story building there. And the 4-story building, as it's currently zoned in terms of height, requires 8-foot ceilings. And I don't know about you guys, but when I see all the young people coming out of high school, I'm looking well up at them. So, you know, you're not even going to get a 4-story building with decent space. I'm going to go red. So I think the reality is, where does all the parking go for D and C? The last thing I want to say quickly is that you drive into Victoria and you see Langford, and we go in and we see all those new rental buildings, apartment buildings, and you go, do we really want to do that to people who are going to live in nice housing in Qualicum Beach to put them right on the highway? Do we really want to do that? Don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now your turn again, Jim.
I think we're nearing the end. One, I want to congratulate the town planner again in the work that he and his staff have done on the opportunity. I don't think you've heard too many people this afternoon say, don't buy it. That's the good news. The question is how. Now, I want to share an idea I've shared with Councillor Skipsey and Councillor Harrison during the break, so the other 3 of you hear it. The west side of this proposal isn't really enthusiastic about 5 stories. So you're probably going to have to go back to the drawing board and think twice. And in doing that, you give up some of the projected revenue for the overall plan in your mind. Part of the congratulations for Mr. Sales is he presented the opportunity to put some institutional housing there, which we need. So I want to leave the other three of you with this thought. Can you reduce the density thought in this bylaw in the, what is it, area 4 or whatever on the map? Can you reduce the density thought, trade for another piece of land elsewhere in the community that would allow for that density, and immediately try and find someone who would do that? 10 lots, 500,000 a lot, there's $5 million right there. That would let you help you acquire another piece of land where you could put this density other than in the backyard of my West Side friends. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. And good night to you. So I think we've completed the list, and some have spoken the second time, but I'm going to go through the proper procedure where I have to ask 3 times if there's any more people who would like to make a presentation. So for the first time, is there anyone who still would like to make a presentation? For the second time, okay, come on up, Shannon.
Okay, very quickly, I just want to add my voice in support of the preservation of that area, what they call Area D. That's the, the 781 Fairways Drive, I think it is. So, yeah, because we haven't mentioned trees at all. But some people have talked about the conservation of the green space, and so that will include trees. But I agree with most of the residents here who have talked about that particular lot, and then I suppose the greenway above it too, the small strip of town home land.
Thank you. The gentleman in the back, come on up.
I guess I can hear me now, right? I lived in Qualicum Beach for 30 years. I lived in Eaglecrest. I live on Fairways Drive, and that's the one that sort of everybody talks about, high density and all that stuff. I often thought, well, when we first bought it, they said to us, behind you is going to be green space, don't worry about it. Very nice. That's why my wife and I bought it. Now we know we're going to have apartments behind us, and with their binoculars, they can see into my backyard. So my question is, why? I don't understand it, and it seemed to be all to do with the golf course. Everybody wants a golf course, but what about the people around the golf course? That's my concern, is that. And I know this is a little prejudice, but anyone in the council live in Qualicum Beach? Do they live in Eaglecrest? Do they?
This is not a debate.
Hang on.
This is a rhetorical question.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Like I said, does anybody on council live in Eaglecrest?
Well, we're not going to have a debate or ask some questions.
Well, you're debating with me, though.
No, I'm not.
Okay, then why am I here?
You can say your opinion, and we'll take it into consideration.
I asked.
No, please.
Nobody here.
Don't challenge me on having a question and answer period. We're not going to do that. Thank you.
So the point is, listening to everybody's comment, we're going to do this, but it's up to council to make that decision. We're going to do this and propose that. It's up to council to make that decision. Well, what about us? We can speak here, but I think that your decision has already been made.
Thank you. I didn't get your name, sir. Okay. For the second time, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, come on up, sir.
I would love to just finish where I left off. This won't take long. So, yeah, please just take a second. So, just with regards to property values that I was referring to before, just with regards to property values and what I was reflecting before on how the impact of this development, specifically on property values, I wanted to make some recommendations as per the current proposed plan. The first recommendation is to remove the proposed commercial designation for subject property number 1 and keep this space for designated golf course. Subject properties 2, 3, and 4 should be reverted to R1. Conceptually, it's not unreasonable to subdivide, and I'm just talking about C now. It'd be incredibly easy to subdivide that into 13 generous single-family lots if that portion needed to be developed to accomplish the financial goals. You could get 13 generous single-family lots in that on that strip with lots of setback from the cottage properties below. Those lots would reasonably go for about $600K a lot. So 13 at $600K a lot, that's $7.8 million right there. You know, I don't know why we need to have such densification to accomplish such gross revenue. It doesn't seem like you need that. So anyways, furthermore, subjects properties 5 and 6 should be retained as green space. I think you've heard that over and over and over again, so I won't dwell on that. And then redesign the golf course. It should include green spaces and walking paths that connect East Eaglecrest with West Eaglecrest. Because I hear a lot of divisiveness, a lot of division between, and it's really as one community. We want to maintain one community. So we want people actually transiting across the community by bike paths and green spaces. So in conclusion, while the goals of purchasing the golf course are good, the densification of housing components carries real risk of lowering existing property values in the community. The proposal should be significantly constrained or redesigned with robust protections for existing homeowners to avoid harming those who already invested in the area under its current character. I understand that the municipality is under perhaps provincial pressure to enhance housing affordability, but this is not the way to go about doing it. You're harming others to accomplish a goal that can be done in other ways. So for the sake of all those people in Eaglecrest, and particularly to protect their home values, I implore you not to pursue this as it's designed now. It's not a good idea. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So for the second time, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, I see a hand in the back. I think we can remember that.
I didn't really get a chance to finish making my point. I think about the parking, and in particular, I was looking at Lot C. But essentially, I think what you'll find is that if a developer was to go ahead and build one of these supposed 5-story buildings or 4-story buildings, I think what you'd find is that it's not the numbers of the pro forma is not going to work if they have to go underground. So because it's super expensive to put underground parking in it. So as a result, they're going to have to look at surface parking in all these buildings, and I think that's going to eat up a huge amount of your any buffer and green space, and also the simple fact is that because this is removed from downtown and you have to go across the highway, it's going to require parking. You're not going to get away with having no parking in these buildings. If you notice, like the way to buffer the cost of putting underground parking is easier in the downtown area where people can put a podium parking and clad it with retail spaces similar to East Village. So that mitigates a lot of the cost and offsets it. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear of where I was headed with that. So I fundamentally think that there's no transitional density here. I think if we had the whole site of Eaglecrest, you would step from single family to a little higher density townhomes and maybe low-rise buildings, and maybe if you're in the city, high-rise buildings. But I don't think this development allows for that, and I think it's going to feel awfully weird to have basically I won't say whose wall wrapping around Eaglecrest, but that's what we're talking about. That's what I want to finalize on.
Thank you. So for the second time, is there anyone who wishes to speak, that hasn't spoken yet, or wants to speak for the second time? And for the third time, anyone who wishes to please speak or make a presentation? Thank you. Then with that, I think I'm going to ask council for a motion, and I think you have it in your package. that all written and verbal submissions regarding bylaw 900.06 and bylaw number 800.08, 2025, to and up and including October 6, 2025, be received and that the public hearing be closed. Councilor Penhawk, Councilor Skitsy, discussion? All in favor? Then the meeting is adjourned and the public hearing is closed. Thank you.